Prim and proper. I gotta get my shirt sorted here. Hold on. I have my microphone and everything. I can tuck this into my little... Nobody's gonna notice.
Get yourself tucked.
Just a little tuck in. Actually, I won't do that. If I stand up, then I'll pull the bloody
Why are you
equipment
standing
out.
up?
Just in case I get excited.
Oh, the games are that good, yeah.
They are good games this year. So
Okay.
yeah, whenever you want, you can let me know when we start.
Yeah. Do you want to get your can and start us off?
Okay. Wait, my can? What do you mean?
Your can.
Oh, so you mean you mean when I was doing the streams throughout the year and we had our best bits compilation.
How do we start every stream?
You pointed out something to me that I wasn't aware of.
And I love it.
So I didn't realize that I actually love having a can and I always tend to lick the can and like make a big deal about what I'm drinking. It's not even a big deal, but you know.
So what are we drinking today, James?
Okay, so in the spirit of the ceremony and tradition that we decided to make this a thing where I have a can all the time. Hold on, am I holding it up nice here on the stream? So I got today's normally I have like a Coke.
Yeah, you do love a good Coke, not sponsored.
I do.
Love a good Coke.
It's this isn't an ad. I just happen to love cracking
now
a
we're
crisp Coke.
running joke and everything.
Yeah, so the running joke now, I bought myself a fancy drink for the stream.
We always have a fancy drink for the stream. You have your drink and I have my drink.
Well, I actually have two drinks. So one of them's a mulled wine and the other one is this. So this is the London Essence, if you can see it. London Essence. It's aromatic orange and fig. Actually, if I hadn't known it was fig, I probably wouldn't have bought it.
Give us a figgy pudding. We'll...
Yeah, well, here we go. We can just... Oh, clack. Cheers to 2024. Oh, Jesus. Oh, it's everywhere. Oh, no, it's fine. It's alright. What are you laughing at?
So,
That's nice, actually.
Are you okay?
Oh,
maybe you did.
Just went down the wrong
Maybe that
way.
was good because you almost stood up there.
Oh, jeez, I did get it over the mic.
Oh no!
It's okay.
It's okay. But either way, my dear James.
Yes.
It's the end of the year. It's 2024 December.
2024, we're back.
Load of games.
Yeah. So I actually think that this year could have been one of the best years for games. Like this could go down as the 2017. That was also another seminal year in games. 2004, 2007, 1998. These are, I know this sounds weird, but if you
Random
into
numbers.
games, they're not random numbers. These are actually years that games had like a huge year for releases in games. But I think 2024, maybe not big games, but I'm talking about breakout games in indie scenes, including early access games.
There were so many games out and so many out on early access.
I'm so sorry. The fear came back up. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be a family-friendly stream. It's fine. I'm going to move back onto my mulled wine. I feel like that'll control me more. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there were a lot of games out there that were just like a lot of early access as well, like that are peak games that we're obviously waiting on.
What?
Pardon me. I'm trying to keep a straight face. We'll just cut that out. It's fine.
Yeah, editor, you can cut that out. I don't have an editor.
You are the editor.
Oh yeah.
But either way, it's a lot of stuff this year, a lot that like we have to go through, and we both have 3 games, a bonus game which we both agree on, and our Future Frothers, of course, to go through.
Yeah, so the format is the same as every other year. Like Wendy said, we have my 3 games, a bonus game, then we have Wendy's Cozy Corner, where she goes through her cozy games for the year, and then we have our Future Frother, which actually went down really well last year. I thought it was pretty good. There's loads of people were asking me about, oh, you're most looking forward to a game and stuff like that. So I like doing that segment. But one segment we got rid of was the other games that I used to play in the year, which I've played too many other games to even really include. So I actually have them written down on my Medium, the medium.com.
Yep.
So on the blog there, all my other games are there and they're summarized. We'd have enough footage for a separate show if we're just talking about the others.
Maybe next year we'll do this. That's a lot.
Okay. I don't know if that was the wind or an explosion outside, but
It was an explosion outside.
That was.
Loads of background noises just going on. But I think so. Yeah, will we dive into and introduce game number 3 for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Now, first, I actually have a little secret hat. Hold on now. Little secret hat down here. Okay, so we have 2 choices for the ceremony of it all. So I have Santa's hat, and that's choice number 1. And then I also got these little reindeer antlers.
I think the reindeer.
You think the reindeer antlers?
Yeah, you had Santa hat last year. Let's do reindeer's antlers. Because I went with Christmas trees on my house and everything. Okay. So this year it's you with the reindeer's antlers.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, then it is. It's been decided.
Oh, look at you. Ain't you cute?
Alright. This wasn't my first choice, but I'm actually feeling it now. I feel it.
I think it really brings out your eyes.
Yeah, I feel it.
Compliments.
Okay.
Compliments you.
Christmas 2024, game number 3.
All right, well, let's go straight into your top 3, starting number 3.
Against the Storm. Should we do like a drum roll? Against the Storm. It's already on the screen. Yeah, so I actually feel like I don't hear many places talking about this. No traditional media, no YouTubers, anything like that. And technically, this should have an asterisk on it. Because this game came out in December last year, but we were already in the middle of recording as this game was coming out. So, what, you have like 2 days to play a game?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it also had some DLC release this year, keeps it fresh and stuff. So I feel like December last year is merit of being on the list this year.
Yeah, November to November.
What a game. So yeah, Against the Storm. So pretty much it's a city builder mixed with like a roguelite. Now, how, you may ask, is that possible? How do you get roguelike elements into a city builder? Don't you need certain like type of build structure and all this kind of thing? But they've actually managed to do it really, really well. It kind of, so you start off with like a kind of a caravan with like people and some basic resources, and then you start off with your small caravan. You build one thing at a time, and in traditional sort of like roguelite sort of fashion, you get like cards or random drops or some sort of like loot drop that has certain building elements in it, and you have to kind of cater your sort of building to the area that you're in. There's different biomes. So the biome, if you're in say a swampy biome or like the mysterious forest biome, there might be maybe there's carrots and like rock in one, so you have to get your carrots and rock farming buildings and like quarries and stuff. Or if you're in the you can get like farmland, and then you make like your radishes for food, and you could get like your clay is another one, and then so on and so forth. As you can see from the footage, it kind of builds on from there. You get different resources, but the main catch to the roguelite element is you're actually trying to keep your citizens happy. And you get maybe 3 or so different types of citizens in a level. You can get between lizards, harpies, humans, dwarfs, toads, which are the new ones, foxes, and I think that's it. So basically, how it works in how you win a level, you go in, you have to make sure your people are happy by giving them specific types of foods that they like. Lizards like meat, etc., etc. And different factions are good at different buildings. So you put a dwarf into a lumber camp, they're better at that. You
Yeah.
put the lizard into the smelting factory and they're good at that.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps you accelerate. And that's the basic run of it. You have to get them, your citizens, so happy that you reach a certain threshold, and after that threshold you win. If you keep them happy or pissed off or kill them, or if they leave, then your impatience threshold goes.
Yeah.
There's 2 thresholds, and if your impatience threshold outpaces and beats your
Satisfaction.
reputation
Yeah.
threshold, you're game over, and that's the run done. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I would say probably the best bits are so what I have written down here is like a creative execution of the strategy formula, mixing in full roguelike elements. So I've never seen this done before, by the way. I've never seen a city builder, and I love city builders, and roguelites, I love roguelites, and I've never seen these two married so perfectly well. And I feel like Against the Storm doesn't really get the sort of reputation it deserves, or its kudos for what it's after creating here, because I feel like this is the perfect entry point for not detractors but people who aren't really into city builders. This is a great first step into them.
Yeah.
Because city builders can be kind of intimidating because they can go on for hours and hours and hours, like City Skylines, where you can be at it for dozens and dozens and dozens of hours. Years.
Yeah.
The game is basically, each town will be about 2 hours, and then you're back. You get your roguelike points to upgrade your towns, unlock new buildings, unlock 10% faster traders arrive, with all your roguelike points and stuff, permanent upgrades. And even as you're seeing here, you get like your orders. You can choose kind of like objectives to do during a mission, and you get rewards for that during the mission to help you out. But just the way that they've married this, I'd say this is a brilliant stepping off point for somebody who's never played a city builder before. And I say this as somebody, like, I'm into city builders and I like them, and this is the best I've ever seen. This is absolutely tremendous.
Funny enough, as you describe this, it very much reminds me of Babelden that I got this year.
Babelden, yes.
It's similar in the aspect as your city building, but you get your random events that pop up and create that roguelike aspect to it. And I never would have pegged it as roguelike, but as you describe it, I'm like, actually, this is a great comparison of like a different version of this style of gameplay. Is a different game.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about this sort of art style is that it's almost kind of like I don't know, folklore. It's like folklore-y.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, it just has this kind of fairy tale sort of folklore,
very
sort
medieval.
of art style and art direction. Even the music is so whimsical and
Fantasy.
kind of like, mysterious. But it's not dark. It's kind of like positive sort of, mystical and whimsical sort of world. It's just wonderful. It's brilliant. And then you got like the best parts of a city builders are distilled into an addictively challenging package. Because the worst thing about city builders, like I was saying, they can go on for hours and hours and hours. But this is a nice condensed distilled package.
You have an end goal every time.
You have the same end goal, but this leads perfectly onto the next point I was going to say. So each map offers different objectives. There's different ways to win it, and you don't know what citizens you're going to get. You do know what you're going to start with, but you don't know what citizens are going to arrive in your camp during the mission. So you could set up for humans, but then you end up getting like something like harpies and foxes, which are all work different systematically. So you have to cater for them and adapt and build towards them. So it keeps it fresh all the time. The game is just constantly kept fresh, even without added content or DLCs, which the game is always being added on. They're always adding more updates. In fairness, the devs are catering really well. They do. They have updates to the game all the time. Yeah.
You were mad at that deal.
The DLC. The one thing I didn't like about the DLC is that the frogs, which is the new faction that they added, they had a very steep level you had to be at. So you had to be at level 13 to unlock the frogs. Which was
an interesting way of doing in the DLC, because obviously normally when you buy a DLC to a game, it locks you in. You have direct access to that DLC straight away. But this DLC, as you said, you had to be at a certain level to access them. And how much did you have to grind? Where did you start when you got that DLC?
Well, that's a good question. So I was about 60 hours into the game through the year.
Yeah.
And then the DLC came out, and luckily at the time I didn't know when I bought the DLC, but I was level 11 and you need to be level 13.
Yeah.
So it took me 75 hours in total to get there.
Like another
to actually just get to the DLC content.
Yeah. So, but that's changed now, hasn't it?
That's right. In fairness now, I have to say it has changed. So an update there a few weeks ago when recording this in December 24, they have updated it. So it is level 9 now. Now, I could have done with that when I first bought it, but I don't really see that it needed to be so high for just a new faction. Now, they say that they're more difficult, but I didn't really see that. I'm already 75 hours in.
Yeah.
I know how the game plays.
I've never seen it like do that before as well. Any game like do a DLC that you have to unlock to a certain level before you access it, even though you've paid for it. You're like, what's happening? If it was a free DLC, I could understand, but like it was a bought DLC, wasn't it?
It was a bought DLC. Now, in fairness, the only other game I know that does something like that is like Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I think they've released like a mid-level DLC where you had to be like a certain amount of hours, like 40 hours into it.
For the expansion now.
Yeah, for the expansion. But I've never seen a game like this. There's no reason for them to not do that, unless because the citizens you get, the factions you get, are so ingrained into the game that they might think like, oh, the frogs are more difficult to manage and they might need harder sort of resources to kind of keep them happy. But I still think it's a little steep. It could be level 5, level 9. It was level 13. That's 75 hours in.
Yeah, that's a lot to play, like commit to a game. I suppose you're committed to a game if you're going to get DLC as well.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And even then, the DLC was pretty scant. Now, since they have changed that as well, they added a new biome to it as well, which I actually haven't played. But I felt like I had 1 or 2 games with the frogs and felt like, okay, I've seen everything the DLC even has to offer.
From this game, what was the thing that you enjoyed the most that set it apart from that made it your top, like your third top of this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the one fundamental thing was the fact that they had figured out how to successfully manage or build into roguelike and city builder, how they managed to like genre blend those two genres and make something so successful, so just unlimitedly replayable. It's brilliant, and it's so very accessible as well. It's not very, I don't know, how do I say, like, you don't need to invest hundreds of hours like others.
Just 75.
Only 75 to get to the DLC. But the fact that you start off fresh every 2 hours, that in itself is enough to kind of merit the sort of exciting part of city builders. For me, the exciting part of the city builders are actually starting off.
Oh yeah.
It's not when you get dozens and dozens of hours in city skylines and you're just kind of like managing this ultra massive city that if you stop for a week, you're not going to remember where you are.
Yeah.
But this game, it's 2 hours, it's digestible, it's easily playable. I 100% recommend it for anybody who's a skeptic of city builders or even roguelites, but it's more for city builder folk. Or people who are looking to get into city builders or who don't like or bounce off city builders.
The creation like aspect of games.
Yeah.
And then the combat and all those sort of things.
There's no fighting.
Is this your
like
Cozy Valley game?
You know what? It might be. Yeah, because it is a cozy city builder. There's no fighting. Although that's not to say that it's without its
combats. There's still the like internal combats that you still have to go up. I don't know. Do they do external combat?
Well, not combat, but there's timed trials that you have to gather resources to resolve. And if you don't, then you lose like your impatience and you're one step closer towards losing a map. But there's not really... There's no fighting. It's not a real-time strategy where you're making military units to fight. You're just managing your little caravan of little houses and towns and like little factories and little lumberjacks.
I'm pinning this as your Cozy Valley game.
Okay. I'll sell it that.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to go for your number 2?
I don't actually, because I want to Yeah, or I've gone through some good parts, but I think I've gone through some downer parts as well. So yeah, the only thing about it is that it's pretty slow to start. So it takes a couple dozen hours and to get like useful perks and unlocks from your, how do you say, like roguelike permanent upgrades or whatever. You need to be playing for like 20 plus hours before you get to the good stuff. So like 10 maps in, say, and then you're actually getting to interesting stuff. I mean, stuff that's not 1% faster trading time. It's like, ooh, it's like actual tangible stuff. Like humans start with 20 extra stone, or harpies start with their signature house. Yeah, like that's tangibly good stuff. You don't need 1% faster trade time or 1% faster villagers arrive time. That's nonsense. Who cares about that? It's so negligible. So that's kind of crap. So it's a little bit slow to start, but when you get those and you're good to go. So what I'm saying is between 20 hours and 75 hours, golden era.
Sweet spot.
Golden era.
Sweet
spot.
Give yourself 2 weeks to get into it.
Yeah, give yourself 2 weeks. I swear it gets good after the 5th episode. So yeah, the other thing is that they have this overworld map, and it's combined with like a limited time to complete your journey. You only get like maybe 8 journeys to make before you reach the end map, and I don't really know what's going on with that. It's very obtuse. Maybe people who have played the game, they probably know what I'm talking about when you're going with your caravan from map to map.
Ambiguous.
Yeah, it's just too opaque. Like, I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
Like, why does it take that amount of time? Why can't it just guide you to where you need to go? It doesn't even have a track on the bottom to say you have 3 more places to get to before you get to the end. It's just this random track at the bottom with different lengths of time, and makes no sense to me. I've already gone through the DLC. Prerequisite is way too harsh, the DLC is a bit scant. But in summary, it's the perfect introduction for a strategy game objector. It perfectly encapsulates the best part of city builders, wrapped with a fresh roguelike twist.
Ooh, what a lovely summary.
Perfect.
Excellent. So let's kick into your number 2 game.
Okay, number 2. Let me just get my notes here. Oh yes, yeah. Okay.
Is this where I do the drum roll into it now this time?
We could do a drum roll. This game is deserving of a drum roll anyway. Well, every game in this top 3 is well deserving of a drum roll.
Well, that's why you made your top 3.
Of course.
Yeah.
Drum roll worthy.
All right, drum roll yourself in.
Actually, we should do this in the past. It's 50. Okay. Oh my god, what a game! This is crazy. I actually didn't realize this game is 8 years in the making by a handful of developers. I'm not too sure on most of the other developers, but I know that the main developer, Derek Yu, well, I'm not sure if he's the main developer, but one of the main developers, Derek Yu, who is behind Spelunky. Love that game. He was one of the main guys behind this game as well, which made it an instant buy. If Spelunky was anything to go by, I don't even know how to really review UFO 50 because it's such a weird kind of a title. It's very experimental, but I'm into kind of like weird underground experimental. I don't know. Sorry.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, just like weird little games. So how I would explain it is like, so it's basically a collection of 50 mini games.
Yeah.
It feels bad to say mini games. They're kind of like macro games. They're full games within it. It kind of like reminds me of like it's like a game on the NES or the like an old SNES, like small games kind of like that, but they're fully built out. You can get different types of genres. There's RPGs in it. There's little arcade games. There's like beat 'em ups, shmups, and everything in between.
Yeah, this is a great game because you got this for when we went on holidays this year.
That's
holiday game. And it was so much fun of just even looking over your shoulder to play them and then even finding my own one to play. And you're still playing that. And that was back in October that you started this.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it was back in September.
Well, end of September.
Yeah. This game, big time, reminds me of America. Obviously, as you said, when we went to Florida and I got it, yeah, but it's the perfect kind of game for that. It's the perfect travel game because it's so easy to pick up and put down. Like, I love those pick up and play. You can play it for like 15 minutes. You can play it for like 15 hours.
Yeah.
In one set, well, maybe not one session, but there's something for everybody in UFO 50, and like that, there's something for everybody, but there's nothing for nobody. It's the extreme ends, because I don't like every game in it. You're not going to like every game in 50 games. You didn't like some games in it, but you love some games.
Yeah.
I think somebody will find something that they love in UFO 50. It just happened that there was loads that I loved. Some of them that I did like and didn't like. But there was I'd say there was a handful of games that I actively just disliked, just would never touch again.
Yeah.
Even for trying to getting achievements and trying to get try to cherry them, gold them and cherry them. This one on right now, Party House. This is probably my favorite game in it. There's a handful of games. I'd say the best way to probably describe it is that there's the top three games for UFO 50 is, for me, number 3 is a game called Overbold. I actually don't have any footage for this. It's kind of like an arena style shooter where you like push your luck and try and bet against how many monsters you think you can beat, and then you get money for all those that you beat, and then in the little pause screen or victory screen, you spend that money on upgrades, faster firing weapons, stronger weapons, and more shield, more health, and you try and like ride that luck or ride that skill, we could say skill, all the way to the end and try and beat the main bad, the big bad. So Overbold number 3. Second in the macro games, which you're partial to, I'm crazy partial to. In fact, I was frothing at the mouth when I was playing this. Quibble Race, number 2. Do you remember Quibble Race?
That's not the Chinese action one.
No, that's called Detonation.
I do love the Detonation.
That's a good one as well, actually.
I love that one.
That could have been the 4th if there was...
It's my number 1.
Yeah.
The main one I played.
That one is brilliant.
Which one's Quibble Race?
Quibble Race is the horse racing one. Yeah. Horse. It is horses.
That deserves even a number 1. I'm sorry. Like,
we'll
get to your number 1. But Quibble Race is the one where it's 3 people playing against each other to race horses. You can bet on each other's horses. You can also buy horses to train, and you can also, before you go to the races, maybe spike some horses, maybe break some legs, maybe make them drunk, maybe protect them. And then they play, and like the screaming we've had in this house over playing that game, because it was just, I can understand where people get into like the horses. I've never been into the horses, but like, oh my god, the absolute excitement over this racing game.
Well, you almost took my notes verbatim out of my mouth. You pretty much described Quibble Race perfectly there. It's, I don't even know how to explain it. It's kind of like, you've just described it perfectly. It's like a horse racing game, but you can do like evil things in it, and like sabotage horses and drug horses, and it's just brilliant. But my favorite part of it is that you can live action see the horses racing, and you have to look away from the screen while your friends or whoever is betting on the horses. And then when it comes down to the race, you then see who everybody voted on and see them in real time as the horses race across the screen, as people are throwing trash at them, as they're slipping over banana peels, as they pass out and die from being poisoned at the end of the screen. It's brilliant. Actually, I do have some footage on right here of picking your character, and it's just great. And I think one of my bad things about UFO 50 is that I wish there were more kinds of these sort of games, like kind of quick arcade style games, funny, just easily accessible, quickly in. There are probably too many RPG-esque games where they're like dozens and dozens of hours long, where you have to invest like a lot of time in them.
Too long.
Yeah, slightly too long. I can't remember some of the names of the games, but there's a Western one. There's like a ball, like a golf ball one that you like swing and take shots with, and it's an RPG. You collect upgrades for the ball. That's good. There's another game called Porgy, which is like an underwater fish thing. You go around exploring, and there's a couple more fish games like that. There's just, to me, there's too many RPGs, take up too many space. I think the game would have been better off with more arcade style games. Yeah. In fact, my top 3 games here are non-RPG games. They're kind of quick, very arcadey, kind of novel, like Quibble Race here, very novel. This is exactly the spot, by the way, where you see in real time all your friends and who they chose. Absolutely terrific fun. Brilliant. Like there's so much screaming and laughing. Brilliant game. And I'd say the number 1 game for UFO 50 in the top 50, well, the first one, is probably Party House, which we already seen footage for. I have actually never seen a game like Party House before, and it in itself is probably worthy of like a €6 or €7 release on Steam by its own standalone release. It's just so, I don't know, just not intuitive, but like it's real, like innovative. I've never seen a game like it before. It's a push-a-luck style game where you kind of like open the door and let people into a house, and you have a certain threshold to reach without going over that threshold. So, and it's a random, you click the door, a random character comes through. They could be worth trouble, but if you've too much trouble, you get closed down and you get no points and you waste a round. So it's real push your luck, and you can buy better people who are worth more money, more popularity points, and you win with your popularity, and you spend your popularity to buy star guests, and you try and get them into your party. It's real push your luck, very random. It's about knowing when to pull the trigger and when to not pull the trigger. That's probably my number 1 game. It's so quick. It's also multiplayer. It's brilliant.
It's so interesting because, as you said, it's not one that I've seen done a lot of times. Like I feel like I've seen a game where you do have you're throwing a party as a premise, and you're trying to get, as you say, a certain level of points. And like I feel like there's very like maybe 1 or 2 games that might have done this like out there, but like because it's kind of throwing back to a good old classic that I love is Sims. When you throw a party in Sims, you have to get certain points, so you have to have certain people arriving, certain things have to happen, and you're looking for a certain like level, as you say, same in this game, is to hit a certain level of like points. And some people bring down the points, some people are bringing minus, so you're really like, it's like trying to get a score out of 10, and some people are +5 and -5 and +2 and -1. So really interesting seeing, because you also have like so many different types of characters.
I think the thing about UFO 50 is, you know, when you see a 51 cartridge and it's like, here's these mini games, which technically I suppose they are, but they're not really like that. When people say mini games, I think of Mario Party and WarioWare, where you're spending like 2 minutes playing a competitive game against and trying to kind of score points against each other, or score coins for Mario Party or something. They're not like that at all. They're full-fledged games within the cartridge. Yeah, they are. So they're not really micro. They're mini games. They're not micro games. They're macro games. They're bigger than that.
Yeah.
Each game is a fully developed game within the cartridge, and that's what I love about UFO 50. It kind of turns that 40-in-1 cheap Chinese knockoff cartridge game, you know, those knockoff kind of cartridges you'd see on like Temu and all this like Shein and all this crap.
Even now, like this, like being Christmas, you already see those little handheld like 50 games in one, and it's only like what, €30 of like a little handheld like little Game Boy throwback, and you're like, is there really a lot on there? Not really.
No, and it's all like knockoffs of Ghosts and Goblin, these sweatshop version Ghosts and Goblin games, like and like that's I suppose they serve a market or whatever, but like they're not. I feel like UFO 50 is trying to make a statement on those kind of cheap knockoff games where these actual 40 or 50 in one cartridges can be good, and when it's this ambitious where you're making fully fledged games within a 50 or in one cartridge, this is just this is it done to its highest caliber. This is the best. This is a powerhouse of those 50 in one. This isn't even in the realm of those, like you said, those 50 in one or 30 in one, like little video game cartridges that you see for like 20 quid on like the cheap eBay, Amazon knockoff things. It's not that at all. This is a fully built out, massive caliber of developers behind this.
I think that's the big positive for me, is the amount of love and attention they've put into these games, because it is normally they could have so easily done such shallow games, but there's so much depth in them, and there's so much detail and integrity like into each single one. You can see the passion for them.
Yeah, I mean there's a handful of genuinely excellent titles in there, really good. Like as I was saying, I'd spend 5-6 quid on like Party House alone. There was another handful of games that are like that, that are that good. And my favorite thing about it is that when you're playing through the games and you start a new game in the cartridge or whatever, it's kind of like a feeling of when Santa brings you a new Game Boy for Christmas and you get like your new game. It's genuinely exciting, and there's a real hit of like a nostalgic sort of blast from the past when you start a new game in that.
I guess like a great question is, out of the 50 games, how many have you played?
I'm actually, I think I have like 75 or 80 hours in the game, and I have like 45. I've actually doubled with my own games in there.
So about 45 games.
45 games, yeah.
So you got like about 5 more to do, maybe?
Yeah, I think there's about 4 or 5 more,
Finish them off for the year, get that done.
Yeah, you could finish them off, but then there's some of the games are so replayable that I actually haven't even gone on to make or play any of the other ones. Like I got stuck at Party House, and then I got stuck at Overbold, and then I got stuck at Quibble Race, because those 3, I just love those so much. I probably have about 10 hours in each of those, if not more in some of them. Like that's what I was saying, there's a handful of brilliant ones, really really good, and you just stick at those. I guess
with that being like such a positive getting into things, would you say in terms of a negative or a place to improve is trying to diverse like slightly out of it, or is it too easy to get stuck on just certain games?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because there definitely are some stinkers in there. I'm not gonna lie, like there's some games that I don't like. I played them for about 5 minutes, knew I wasn't going to get into it, completely bounced off it. There's like a taxi game, kind of like a top-down sort of GTA style, where you drive a taxi around and deliver things and to get there in a certain time. Wasn't into that at all, like bounced off that. And there's another couple of games that I'm like that.
I remember you getting really mad at one of them. I think it was like a football or something game. It was just, you were so mad at it, and then you jumped straight onto a second one which you loved. It was like an American football one, but it was like a kind of like jousting knights setup. It was, but like one of them you're just like, this is just stupid. Like the CPU just ridiculous in the one that you got so mad at.
Tactics, I think, is the one you're talking about. The knight jousting one where you go head to head.
That one was really good. I thought that was good.
That's a probably top 10 maybe. Yeah. There's some really really good ones, and there's some there's like real-time strategy games and turn-based tactics that are really impressive for the system that they're trying to build, like this kind of 8-bit and 16-bit systems. Really really impressive title. I don't think UFO is for everybody, in the same way it's like all the games within it aren't for everybody, but certainly this is a niche title. I wouldn't be running out to my friends, even if there is like a handful of 5 really great titles in it. I still wouldn't be, saying to my best mates or anything like, oh, definitely pick this up. Like, so it's very personal taste.
If someone wanted a game, just one game to fit a household of people that everyone wants to play different games, I think this is a great way for people to discover new types of games. So that way, like anyone who has like say 3 kids playing on like a on a Steam Deck or something, and they just want something that's one gift for all three, I think this is a great gift to give though, because there's so much variety into it, and you can always find something different.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, it would actually be a really good family sharing game.
Yeah.
You know, the way you get the Steam family sharing, that people can pick up and play loads of different types of games on the same system, like you said, the Steam Deck. It's a hard sell for kids because the games are retro, and retro to kids are like PlayStation 3, not Super NES or the NES anymore, which is sad. But when I say that the games are retro, like they're retro in that 80s, 90s sense, like they are hard, like they're difficult, really, really hard.
There's some toughers in there, but like...
And that's where I was going to go on my last point of the negative sort of points towards the 550. And some of the games are just woefully unfair.
Yeah.
They're just diabolically unfair. And it pisses you off. Pissed off.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's just the AI is just ridiculous in some of them, especially the versus matches. There's a couple of brilliant games. One of them's like a samurai kind of volleyball game where you're knocking a ball back and forth. Really good, but it's kind of like Pong, where you're trying to get at the tennis ball or the ball behind the other player to score, and you have all these like power-ups and different samurais that can knock different weapons and use different power-ups and skills and stuff. But it incredibly difficult against AI. Really, really unfairly angry. Angry against the AI. And then there's another one that's like a dodgeball game that is just, I feel like it's programmed not to lose.
I think that was the one you got real mad at when we were on holidays. That was a frothing, like frothing in a bad way. Like it was kind of to a point of like, do you want to turn it
spazzing
off?
out on the ground.
Do you want to like turn it off for a little bit? And you're like, just one more, I swear. And then you were like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, I think that was the samurai game. Yeah, it was actually. And then I found out that was its release week, and then I had patch notes the next week, and they had actually patched that out because it was so difficult. So it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me.
The fact that even they noted it as a patch note,
yeah, that's how difficult it was. But I'd say overall, UFO 50 is a reminder of what makes retro games great, and that it's still possible to create incredibly produced retro games with modern conventions. Yeah, beautiful game. Really, really good. Artwork is incredible as well. Just a triumph of retro games.
Love all the artwork in it. So good. Perfect. Okay. Then I guess if that's your number 2, we're going into your number 1.
Yes, number 1. Okay.
I have not seen this number 1, so I don't know what it is.
You haven't even seen it.
No.
So, but the only thing about it is that if people who know me and they know I'm very much into the indie scene, underground indie scene. I'm so underground, so hipster, so underground. Ooh.
So cool.
But I do like experimental, different, off the beaten track games. I'm not into like big AAA, big budget games. No. Like they just don't do it for me. They're just too by the numbers. I like different gameplay, things that are interesting, different. Yeah, I just like that. And this is interesting and different, and also happens to be big and popular.
So I guess the little drum roll into the little number 1.
This one's a big drum roll. Yeah, had to be. Balatro. Drum roll.
Absolutely. I was going to be really upset if actually it wasn't.
Yeah, I know that you were talking about that, and I was trying to keep it a secret. But to tell you the truth, when I was drafting up this, the game of the year, even for the show here and for the list on the blog, this was always in the number 1 spot. It hasn't moved, and I have about 6 or 7 games from this year that could have been in this list and have either narrowly met. I'll mention them after this in the bonus game, but very, very close to getting in.
When did Balatro come out? Do you remember?
I think it came out in February or was it March?
I feel like it was near our birthdays in March.
I think it might have been March actually. Yeah. Because Helldivers came out in February and we got that for our birthday, and then I think Balatro came out just before our birthdays, so that would have been the start of March.
Yeah, so this is definitely a game that you've been frothing for.
I have been. You know what? And people probably have like hundreds of hours in this game. I don't have hundreds of hours in it. I have about 60 hours in it. I actually get fairly stuck in Balatro after the green ante, and I think people will know what that is when if they've played it.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It is.
But it's what I love about Balatro is that it's a centuries-old game that is reinvigorated and remade into like a fresh experience on like a classic traditional card game.
I think that's a great opening. Is tell us about Balatro.
So yeah, it's for people who don't know or are living under a rock, because this game is everywhere. But it's a poker game that you use jokers to modify your score, and each card or hand type is worth a certain score, and you use jokers to multiply and modify that score to try and get crazy high numbers and scores. So in each ante, which is like a match, so each ante will have a score that you have to beat, and each hand, say a straight, a royal flush, a flush, two pair, will be worth a certain amount of points. Obviously a royal flush is like one of the biggest things you can get, and then like a high card or a pair is the lowest, and everything in between will be worth a certain amount of points and then a certain multiplier. And you're trying to get jokers that modify the multiplier or the points, and then you can only have like 5 jokers, and each joker has a different ability. So you might have a joker that just straight up adds like 20 extra multiplier, or you have jokes that can multiply the multiplier. So if you have 20 multiplier, you can then go, this joker adds like, if you have 2 queens in your hand, this joker adds like by 3 times, so you're going 20 by 3, so then you have 60 multiplied by your point score. It's very complex. It's actually kind of a hard game to kind of like preempt and calculate, which I actually heard a story about this game was that he initially had a calculator. I think the developer, I think it's a solo developer as well, he had a calculator almost built into it to show like what scores can be, and I think it became a very different game there because people were trying to min-max the type of cards and hands you could get, and not just playing them and seeing what happens, because a lot of the, well, not a lot of the game, but there's so much going on with multipliers and point multipliers, and you can get different seals which change cards, red seals, blue seals, and then you can get different enhancements on cards which affect its point score or multiplier score, or add gold that gets you money, which you can buy upgraded cards or upgraded how do I say, like you can upgrade your hand type, like add extra multipliers when you play flushes, etc. There's just so much going on, but despite me saying all of that, it's actually very, very simple, and anybody from like, let's not say under 18, because technically it's a gambling game, which I hate that. Because it's not a traditional gambling like casino game. It's just because it's like a take on poker. This game could be 3+. It's not about gambling. You don't spend real money in it. It's just a simple take on poker.
Like Magic.
Like Magic, like Magic the Gathering.
It is. I would agree. Like it's. I would not associate this with gambling.
No.
And it's not even for the fact of like, because I'm not actually dealing with money when it comes to it. That's not even like what I'm thinking of when I think of gambling. Like I can understand where people are coming from. As you said, it's based off the game of poker. I'm so fascinated by this style of gameplay because it is so different. Like, just like the whole mechanics behind like the different types of cards, the different styles, doing the multipliers, like trying to then match like the different like rounds you go through, like from the small blind to the big blind, and like just like the bosses and everything you got to go up against. Like there'll be a catch-22, like, oh, you can't play 2s this round, or like you can't have a king, or there's like certain ones where they can't do things. Like it's such a fascinating mechanics of a card playing game. Like that's why like I joke saying like, oh, it's like Magic, is because like you're building up your hand as if you're trying to then play it into like a certain like power pack. Like that's the way I see it. That's why I wouldn't associate it with gambling, but I do get it. I get why it's counted like as classed for it, but it is such a fascinating game.
Yeah, I get it, but I hate that it is, because it stops people who are under 18 from playing the game, because it's that good, and it's technically not. Like, it's not gambling like as in a casino game. It's just because it's poker in a traditional sense, but it's not poker in a traditional sense. But yeah, all that to say is that it's fantastically simple, but it's just fantastically simple. I don't know how else to say it, and it's very hard to explain the game without people playing it, because you say, oh, you're multiplying this and you're multiplying this and you're getting things, but it's actually really simple. The gameplay loop is really easy. You go in, you try and defeat an ante by playing card flushes, you go to the shop after that ante, you buy upgraded cards, same again, into the next ante, cards, bigger money, bigger cards, rinse repeat all the way. You get through 8 different rounds or 8 different antes to get to finish a run, let's say, because it's kind of like a roguelite. But the satisfaction of different things, like the way the different cards move and the clicking and clacking sounds and the flushing sounds of like the cards, like all the lovely little flourishes of the animations and the bouncing and the clicking and the movement and the wavy sort of like flowing. It's just a wonderfully presented, and that's what I love about it. It's a simple soundtrack. The pixel art is really expressive. It's really colorful, but it's also like, it's wonderful. Like, it looks like you're playing on like a kind of a mystical magic sort of like table. It's really lovely presented.
Which is saying so lovely presented. One of my favorite things that he started to do, the creator, instead of most people always come up with DLCs, he made partnership skins with a lot of known games, being one of my favorite of Stardew Valley.
That's
as
true.
Others. What other games has he done?
Actually, since last week, since we recorded this, so in December, he's made, I think there's partnerships with Cyberpunk, The Witcher, there's The Binding of Isaac, Cult of the Lamb,
Cult of the Lamb,
Stardew Valley, Slay the Spire. Great shout out to Slay the Spire, one of the best games ever made. God, there's a handful more. There is actually a load more. Oh, Vampire Survivors, which is great that the game's getting recognition, and I love that at the Game Awards and different YouTubers and different kind of media outlets and legacy newspapers and stuff are giving it high praise.
I feel like of every like video we've seen so far, like Bellatrix is mentioned in there somewhere, and it deserves it because it is so different. Like, absolutely, like when Vampire Survivors came out, that every game after that is a Vampire Survivor style game now. And I'd love to see if in 2025 does anyone else try to replicate this style of gameplay.
Actually, it's funny you said that. I have seen a few clips of like behind the scenes, like developer footage that are making not a rip on Bellatrix, like as in a poker sense. They're trying to make a rip on, so the same idea with the way Bellatrix modifies poker. People are trying to do like mahjong or blackjack or etc., a different card game. So there has been people like that. I don't know if they'll get to the same highs as Bellatrix. Bellatrix just seemed to hit at the perfect time. It's the perfect execution because it's so different, very innovative, very simple, and it's on a classic poker like card game that's hundreds of years old. I actually don't know how old poker is specifically, but it's got to be at least 150, 200, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be, but honestly, if there's one game to pick up this year, it has to be Bellatrix. It's only like 12 quid. It's on mobile, like it's on phones now as well.
It's gone on lots of platforms like mobile, Switch, Steam. I guess we've done like a lot of positives. Is there anything as like feedback that you would look to improve or anything?
When I first started writing this, and up until when I started thinking about it, even last week when I finished off the actual post, I did think that yes, there are some problems. Well, there's one problem that I caught on to with the game. So there are very obviously better jokers than others, obviously, and the higher difficulties you go in the game, it's obvious that if you don't get those jokers, the good ones, then you're just not going to win. Regardless, you need to get almost like 2 or 3 really good jokers out of your 5. Or, well, some jokers can modify the amount of jokers you can have, but say out of your 5 core jokers, you gotta get like 2 or 3 at least talking to each other that are modifying each other. And it's hard to get that, and the higher difficulties you go, the slimmer chances of stuff like that you get.
Would you say that that's to do with the ratio of probability is the issue is a little too extreme, or do you think it's just that's the like slightly part of the game is to try and chance your arm to see what ones you're going to pick up?
Yeah, it's not even that. That's a good point, because it's not really a negative point. I just noticed that there are vastly different or vastly better jokers, which is fine to have that, obviously. But some of the scaling, some of them are like very obviously better, like really better. And some of them you need certain ones to combo with other ones.
Yeah.
And if you have one of the ones that need a combo and you don't have the other combo that speaks to it, then it's kind of pointless. But like you said, that's the luck of the draw. It's kind of part of the game, and you try and adapt all the time to different games. So that doesn't work. You kind of have to, I have to sell this, even though I know it's really good, but will I hold out and try and wait for this good card to show up?
Yeah, you kind of have to go either all in your deck build, or you kind of got to take the risk and sell it off. Because I think very early on you showed me this game and I played it, and there were jokers that you had never seen.
Yeah,
but
there's still jokers I've never seen.
That steel combo one that you were just like, this is actually the best combo ever.
Yeah.
Like, and it was kind of one of those, I did so well that I was like, great, I never have to play this game again. I just did well, I'm good.
You're terrible for that.
But I obviously don't own this game, so I'm playing it off of your like things, but I would definitely buy this game actually on Switch. I was even thinking about it for Christmas, like, do I buy it for myself or
Switch game?
Because it is just a great handheld game. Play. We were even considering getting it for like our phones when we were going on holidays, but it hadn't been out yet. Just to play in the queue, because most people, like, if like we went to Disney, you're going to be standing in a queue, so it's either you play heads up or like you chat and scroll on your phones for like the hour you're waiting, or you could play Blatro.
Perfect queue game.
It is. Although I learned not to play any queue games that were set on our phones from, what was it, last year, was it? We went in a queue game. It was Threes.
Oh, Threes. That's
so
another great queue game. I was getting mad at you.
I beat his score.
I was mad at you.
Game.
I'm not even going to go there. Yeah.
I spent the rest of the trip trying to beat it. I was like, I'm never touching your phone again. It's fine.
I've had Threes for as long as I've had a phone, like 10 years, and I had a certain high score. I handed the phone to you once, and you beat my high score after me playing it for 10 years.
But we play it in two different styles, because I play a game that's similar. I think it's like 2028. So you're trying to get to that score and then like keep building and building. So I'm playing off of that style of like my combinations, versus you weren't combining to make up to that point. So that's how
I was just a stupid dummy. Yeah.
No, it was just so interesting to see, like, at the end of the day, what's a different gameplay. But I think that's the thing, is that's why I say, like, I never need to play this game again, because, like, I won it, I don't need to. But that's only because I don't own it. I would love to play this game. You were only playing it the other day as like a chill game to play while I was playing other games. It's
so easy to play, and it's so easy to pick up. It's like the perfect Steam Deck game. It's the perfect portable game. And it's so disappointing that this didn't exist until now, but I'm glad it exists in general. It's one of the best games ever made. It's just tremendous. Like, I've said that a lot today. Best games ever made. That has come. I've noticed that's come out of my mouth a lot. But this really is. This changes card games. It's so addictive. It's so easy to pick up and play. The presentation is beautiful. The art is wonderful, the little flourishes, the soundtrack is lovely, and the feeling of the multipliers, and like numbers go up and they roll, and then the fire starts when you get a huge score, and it's like
combo.
Wow, crazy good. Opening card packs like as we see on the screen here, and getting like super jacked up cards. That it's just that it's typifies that just one more turn play. Typifies it. It's perfect. Yeah. It's probably the quintessential arcade card game. It's up there with the best card games ever made. Slay the Spire, Balatro. Two of the best to ever do it. Kings. Literally. King, Queen.
Ooh.
Joker. Jack. 10. Royal Flush.
Nice.
Oh, I mean this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to say on it and everything.
It is, yeah, that's it. It's just the perfect. Please buy Balatro Whopper game. 2024. There's a big update. He said in 2025 there's like a DLC for it, and this game deserves all the DLC. I imagine there's like new Jokers, new Seals, or something like that.
New planetary cards. Like there's so many different things. Like if you played it, you understand the lingo, but like otherwise, bonus cards, power cards.
This would be, if you've never played this would be one of the best games you could pick up on Christmas Day. Imagine you wake up and then like somebody has gifted you in your Steam library or Steam Deck a Balatro, and you've never played it before, but you've seen people talk about it. But I'm like, oh, don't know, card game, no, class, absolutely deadly. Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. Well, then we'll move on to our next little segment. We're gonna dive into our little cozy corner.
This is a great segment.
Cha-cha-cha. I'm completely different style of gameplay to yourself, but we do overlap in a lot of games.
We do.
But I am definitely such a cozy gamer. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm a cozy girl.
So you got this kind of style of game which is very niche but is very large and very popular in its own bubble, which is the cozy valley.
I call it cozy valley. So a lot of like anyone who like is into like cozy games will know like loads of different like cozy gamers out there and everything. I've segmented a very specific style, which is titled Cozy Valley games, and they're very much stemming from the Stardew Valley style of gameplay and where do they sit next to Stardew Valley. Pretty much that's how it is. So I am so many Cozy Valley games to get over the winter Steam sale, but I also play a lot of them too. But there are some different ones, and especially my number 3 for this year is not necessarily what I would class as a Cozy Valley game. It's actually just a general cozy game, and you might have seen it out there. It is the game 100 Days. So I'm not normally one to play a story-based game where you do a lot of like kind of side-scrolling kind of stories. I don't know how to describe them. A lot
side quests.
Kind of like not side quests. You know all those like dating sims like games, like that sort of story-based development game. This would be very much a story-based with game mechanics in it, is how I would describe it. So it's not like a top-down sandbox style. You're very much focusing on like interacting with the townspeople.
Dating the townspeople.
Kind of, yeah, but like not in like the Stardew Valley sense. I'd describe it more so as like the like dating sims that you'd see like a lot from like the East, like Japan and all of them. This game,
boyfriend dungeon.
Kind of, yeah, but not with the combat. So this game is called 100 Days. It is you've inherited like most of these cozy games. You inherit something from someone, but you inherit a wine, like a vineyard. And it's so interesting to see the different mechanics this game goes through and the different story prompts it goes through, because you're learning basically the concept of winemaking. So you get obviously certain cards that you use to place down and build. So you get like cards for your vineyard, you get cards for the different type of grapes, you learn about like creating labels for your bottle, the type of bottle you want to do, the type of cork. You see how that affects the different style of brewing. You go through the process of like having your grapes, growing your grapes, making sure to prune and train your grapes, going through loads of different like inner things to then go to the bottle factory of things and going through it. Like like as you've seen, like they did so much detailing to learn the process of winemaking to then go and explore it in a game, and it was so different to what I've played before.
Yeah, I'm even just seeing the trailer here. They had like a lot of like live footage of them going to a vineyard and I presume learning how wine is made and grapes are pressed and stuff, which is interesting because you also said to me, it's like, oh, you would love this game.
I think so. I think you'd actually love it. So you've played like a game called Pharaoh, I think it is, where you go through like different style. And it's very interesting because you get your cards. They kind of work like a Tetris style of card play where you put it down and try to fit everything in. You're picking your type of grape. You're trying to then put it through, like, would you put it through the normal press? Would you put it through a barrel press? And it all changes. So once you've gone through the whole growth of your growing your grapes, which is the farming style that I love, you then go into like the bottling style and how that will affect your end product. Then you have to go and sell your product. And you can also like expand your shop into like being online, selling to like companies. Do you go and do wine tours, like adding in all these different even like machines and everything. So there's like a, what's it called, like a skill tree and everything that you can build off of and everything for this structure. So that's why like when I played this, I actually thought of you when I was thinking of this game.
Interesting.
Because it's like you would enjoy a cozy game, but I think this is like a certain mechanics that you would also enjoy of the cozy nature, but also there's so much kind of like different skills that you learn through the card bases that you do on top of like this little storyline that's happening in the background and everything.
Well, that's funny because when you first said that you would be into this game, I thought as a non-drinker, why would I be into a wine game? But now that I'm actually seeing the footage of it, and seeing the little like tetronimos and like trying to fit them in and like maximize your wine producing capacity.
It is, because they're like the time planes that I've like the different ones, because you like obviously buy extra like extra vineyards and everything like to expand out your grid shapes, and you like you increase your grid shape to try and fit it. There are times where I haven't had enough room to put in my vineyards, like, so it goes through the season from like spring to winter, and winter you don't really get to do a lot of things, so you focus on cleaning, but you have to have that space on your grid to put down your cleaning utensils of like cleaning your bottling factory, or like, you know, going through the bottling factory, the aging of your wine and everything. That all has to fit in your grid, so you have to time your season correctly when you get your cards in order to fit them in your grid like a little Tetris. So it makes it so interesting as you're expanding how much you can do in the season before you run out of that little bit of time.
Gotta say, it does actually look pretty interesting, and it's almost like a city builder where you're trying to like maximize the placement and the things that go in there, and you're trying to make a relationship between other things so it can speak to it to further increase its output. I actually like this, and what really struck me was the color palette is really beautiful. It's kind of has this gorgeous muted sort of like not pastel, but it kind of has a very distinct color palette. It's kind of like almost looks like low poly sort of like.
So I'm gonna call it Art Deco, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right.
It is really nice though. But what would you say is like the best part of it? What's the best bit of the game, or the best bits?
The sheer like detailed mechanics in it. Like, it's not so simple that you're just like, okay, well, here's your grapes, here's your bottle, here everything. Like, you have to go through like grape growing, pruning, training your grapes, putting down pesticides. Like, they give you cards for each steps to like work into it. So it's finding that perfect, like, once you get like that whole merriment of like that like cross like you're like all your parts like fitting together, it's so satisfying. And then even to see how well your wine does when it's with people, like, was the bitterness like correct, was the flavor correct, like how much wine are you selling, and how like in demand it is, and also finding the best value, because it's also when you go to sale, people will try and barter with you, and they'll be like, I want 20 bottles for this much per bottle, and you're like, absolutely not. Like, I like learned, like, you know, I'm not going to sell this bottle for less than 20 because I can get up to 25 from some people. So if someone's asking for like €17 bottle, I was like, absolutely not, it's 20 is my minimum. And you don't have to sell to them, you can ignore them and they'll disappear for like the day, and then they'll back. But it's so interesting to see the difference, and it's actually quite well balanced in mechanics with the story side of things, because it is actually like, originally I thought it was just going to be the mechanics, and I enjoy that city builder aspect, but the storyline that they put in there is actually very good of a balance to the mechanics, because the story actually gives you information of how wine is like grown, like how do you get from starting like the raw materials to the end products. It's built perfectly into the story.
You know what? That's kind of what I love about just looking at it as well. It's almost educational.
It is.
But educational in the best kind of way. You don't realize you're learning,
Yes.
but you're actually having fun and learning.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's pretty interesting. Wine for me kind of reminds me, not that I know anything about wine or drinking, but it kind of reminds me of like coffee in a way that there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to do with like the soil and the acidity and where things are grown and the amount of sunlight certain grapes get and the different breeds of
Yes.
grapes that help a flavor profile. And not that I don't know anything about wine tasting, but you know when you see this like, ooh, this
The
Don
tasting and the
Perrier,
scents.
and they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
sort of sniffing their wine. Not that they probably have that with coffee as well, not that I know,
Yeah.
but I get that now by seeing this kind of game.
It's definitely like, I will say it does great education if you're ever like looking for just more information about like wines, grapes, those sort of things, like understanding that things. This does give a great insight into that information. You also don't need to have any care in the world about wine just to enjoy the sheer mechanics of this as a cozy game. It is such an enjoyment, as well as the storyline. If you just like story-based games, it beautifully ties in every like certain season. It gives you a new story prompt and information, like new people to sell to, or like maybe there's something happening in the background that someone doesn't like you selling. So like there's loads of those little small cogs that work into the bigger picture to make this a great game.
Just like you don't have to be a serial gambler to enjoy Balatro.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to drink wine to enjoy this game. I don't like drink wine. I drink non-alcoholic wine, but like this is just such a fascination. Like I just really enjoyed it, and I actually think a lot of people would enjoy it too.
Love it. And to sum up, how would you, in a single sentence or paragraph, how would you describe or how would you sell the game to someone?
This is a great cozy game for people who want to either be engaged or disengaged when playing a game.
Okay.
It's so easy to either be engaged and know what you're doing, or be disengaged and be on autopilot.
I love that. Yeah.
It was
And
just
you're
perfect.
learning.
And you're learning. It's like the education in the background.
Love it.
But I would recommend this. Is why it's in my top 3. Which
Love it.
brings us on to our top 2, which was in my future games from last year, which is Moonstone Island.
Moonstone Island. Was it, does it need a drum roll? I was about to say drumstick.
It's just a drumstick. No, I don't
Does it
need a
need a
drumstick. I'm good. No, this is part of my last year cozy corner, and this is like solid in my top 3. So this is a Cozy Valley game, as I would class it. It is very much Stardew Valley-esque. It covers off being a kind of what I would call references a little witch. You are flying around to make your own little home. Very geeky delivery services is what first like caught my eye on it, and it's not as simple as I would say Cozy Valley game, because you're able to collect little spirits that you go and do battling with. So this is a card battler. Some people have compared it to Pokemon style. So it's like if Pokemon and Stardew Valley basically created a game. This is it. So you can have up to 3 spirits with you. You are able to tame more, or you can go ahead and just not destroy but fight and beat them in order to like get resources. There's lots going around that, like obviously you go through different sky islands, you come across different characters. Obviously that classic element of like fishing and farming and like peopling, as I was gonna say, but like characters, interactions to build relationships and everything. I would definitely say like this cozy game focuses more on the battle interactions than Stardew Valley kind of covers off everything like as a good standard. Like that would be farming into everything else. This is very much a go and enjoy yourself, focusing on your little Pokemons, as is the best way to describe them. They're spirits, they're not Pokemons, but little spirits going around and just having a bit of fun.
Yeah, I love this. I love the artwork in it. It actually kind of reminds me of like the old Legend of Zelda's, like Link's Awakening and A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this, and I like the kind of card battling with Pokemon as well.
Yeah.
That kind of aspect to it. Yeah, I really like it.
Compared to like other Cozy Valley games that I've played, this was the first time that I'd played one that had this mechanic of combat, which I much prefer. Like obviously if you've played Stardew Valley, you know when you go down into the mines where your combat is, it's very hack and slash. Like you're just pressing A, button smashing in order to cut what's in front of you. Maybe some people have better technique than myself, but I'd just be pressing A and I swipe with like my weapons. But this gave you a different form of combat, and this is why I would say this is more directed towards a combat-like person, because it is playing like a chill vibe of combats, because it comes up and you have certain action points each round to play your cards to defeat the person, and depending on what type of characters you have like made as your companions depends on like what ones, like type of fights you have. Like you could have like fire ones, electricity ones, like earth and water, and all these different style of power-ups depending on like just the basic like smash and dash you like build your characters against how you want to play the game. So it's so like interesting of a different mechanic to what like other fighting games I like would have done. Like Stardew Valley, again, like I would call the combat a bit of a hack and slash. Potion craft is a bit of a hack and slash. When you go out and like fight things, you're very much like you just got a weapon and you hit them with it kind of thing, versus this is more of a like a turn-based style combat.
And what would you say is the best part, the best bits of Moonstone Island?
One, I love the artwork on it. It's that real old school, not pastel, but like again like that like bright like muted colors like leading into like Link. Like I loved playing Legend of Zelda old school like pixel games. Like it's a real throwback. The old school like pixel games on the Game Boy of like Pokemon and Harry Potter. It's that real vibe of it, giving me also the cozy vibes into like being able to do more combat based style of like gameplay, as I wouldn't be a combat person when it comes to games. So having this style of combat is actually really nice, that I actually can do combat, which sounds like a really weird thing, but I can do like little combat bits and build like have a time to actually like upgrade things and like power ups outside of just doing my classic like farming and peopling in like the story.
And would you be excited if there was a Moonstone Island 2, yay or nay?
I would say yay. I could definitely see them going on and doing like a second. I can see them doing DLCs to expand out. I think probably DLCs will be easier than creating a brand new game. Similar to like Stardew Valley, I would definitely like love to see more development with it, because I think it's perfect as it is, but I could see them developing more into like maybe new characters, new islands in the sky, and
Islands
building
in
it
the
out there.
That is what. Okay, that's the end of my singing career.
I mean, I only just started, but like, yeah, I would definitely say like I wouldn't be mad about like having like some DLCs. I'd actually probably be like pretty happy with them, because it's a good Cozy Valley game that like can pull in like more people and play like in a different font style. You know?
Love that.
I say font, but like it's not a font.
Definitely not a font.
But you get what
It's
I mean.
a video game.
You get what I mean, though. In that style.
I see what you're saying. So to sum up Moonstone Island, how would you sell this to somebody who has never played Moonstone Island?
If you're
Moonstone Island. Moonstone Island. It's actually hard to say.
Stone. If you were looking like you love Stardew Valley and like me, you're waiting for the next game from that creator and you're just looking for another simple Cozy Valley like style game, this I would recommend as being a second option. It's similar in artwork, it's similar in some of the mechanics, but it has just enough difference to give you more exploration in a new style of game.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like somebody who maybe enjoys more combat in their Cozy Valley game.
Pretty much.
Would like this.
Less people, less like loot goblining, as I say, and more wanting to explore the combat. I think this is like a great, or anyone wanting to get into combat in a cozy game, this is a great one, because it is turn-based, it is card-based actions, and it's just that slower combat versus I definitely button smash when it comes to certain combats. And that's why James always went and did the combat mining when we played Stardew Valley.
I'm the scary miner. I am the miner in Stardew Valley.
But I was also the rancher. Which then, of course, also brings us into my number one game, which we played together.
Yep.
And I'm so sad it's not in your games. But in fairness, it's in my game, so I completely allow that. And it is absolutely a game that I love, and it was in my blood.
This is a drumstick moment.
This is a drumstick. We are rolling into it. It's the little core keeper.
Yeah, Core Keeper is brilliant. I can stand by this because I have actually played this technically cozy game.
This is a cozy game. I know there's some elements that, like, you could just hear me screaming in the background of some recordings of going, oh my god, but it is a cozy game.
Well, I've never heard you scream during Stardew Valley, so...
Well, that's because I never went down into the mines. When it's by myself, I'm like, oh my god, no.
And what are you doing in Pierre's bedroom?
Yeah, what? Oh my. What I love, so cozy, this is... Core Keeper is once again a Cozy Valley game. You can play up to 8 people on this. I don't know if I'd ever play this with 8 people. Like, there'd be so much chaos. There's chaos with 2 people playing it. But I think that's just how we play. We're comfortable with ourselves to go mess. But you are basically fall down into this underground world where you have this core that you're working towards restoring. You can build your own home. You find animals, like batsies as we call them, little lovely cows, lovely little like little bugs, and that you capture, and you have like that farming element where you're able to plant crops and everything. But you also are working through mining aspects. So I'm going to say this now: if anyone enjoyed going down into the mines in Stardew Valley, this game is for you. If you just like to go down, smash rocks, and come back like with your loot goblin sense, this is the ultimate loot goblin like Cozy Valley game. Completely.
There's definitely more. This is more of a looter,
yes,
than any other Stardew Valley. Like, yeah, do you know the way you have Souls likes? And then you have your Valley likes. This is definitely more combat focused. There's a lot of combat in this.
There is. And so basically when you're going through, there's different rings of expansions. You have different bosses that you have to fight. You come across a lot of little rogue like different kind of creatures that you have to fight and everything. Everything drops some form of materials. You can hack your way through the surrounding area. You create train tracks to go back and forward to things. You can find cars, you can find loads of different things. You can create boats. You have tables to create everything under the sun, under the ground really. Kind of different mechanics. You can upgrade your tools to go from classics up to coppers and iron ore and all those sort of ones. And it is a great adventure game to develop, and it's so funny when the two of us are playing, because one of us will focus on one thing and the other will start the exploration around, or vice versa, and we end up just randomly. I think you actually had the most not screaming on it, but I'd randomly be playing, and I would just be oh my god, what is that? And I'm what? I'm just meanwhile back at the base hacking away and clearing out our area to lay down floor and build a wall and section off our chests and everything, and you're there going what is that? And he's 2 rings away from me going oh my god, this is a new area, I don't know where we are, but oh my god, what is that? And nothing's working to kill it. I'm I'm gonna die. And I'm do I come to you or do I not? I don't know.
It's terrible. I am bad at that, but I've noticed that you have your own version of that, and we both equally have that version of screaming at a thing. Yeah. You have your where you sort of retch
I cringe
and tense your stomach.
I cringe.
Where I have this exaggerated, oh my god, what is that? And you're even rolling your eyes now.
It's
you know
so
what it
funny
is.
because obviously we're not playing against each other, so when I'm in trouble, because I'm oh. And I'm just squealing in the background, cringing. And then out of nowhere, you will just be oh my god, what is that? And I'm what? And it'll be pure silence in response. Instead, like, I'd be like, what is it? Do I need to
Trying to
come
suss out the situation.
But even then, like, give me words. Like, at least when you hear me cringe, you can hear me cringe and be like, do I need to come and help you? And I'll be like, no, it's okay. Or be like, yes, help. Like, I can give feedback, but like, you just go radio silence on me, and I'm like, what is it?
I'm in the moment. I'm trying to suss out what's going on here. I'm in the brush.
I think like this is where this game like brings out that like hilarious elements, because you could just be chopping through a wall, not expecting anything, and then oh my god, you come across the boss and you are like, shoot, what do I do now, because I actually don't know what to do. I'm in definitely an area that I was not supposed to be in or something, and then of course you have to come around and like start like sussing out that area to find out actually what's going on.
Yeah. I think how I would describe Core Keeper to people who have never played it before is like, it's the perfect mix between Stardew Valley, Minecraft, and Terraria. It's everything for everybody. There's combat in it, there's town building, there's crafting, there's mining, there's cooking, fishing, there's everything. There's like literally every element of like town building in these pixel kind of games.
Yeah.
There's something for everybody. And that's why I really like it, because I don't like certain elements of like those cozy Stardew Valley likes.
There's always some mechanic. Like, I'm going to say I love Stardew Valley. But
Stardew Valley is great.
Fishing mechanic, I despise. And I will say, in Core Keeper, fishing mechanic is still hard, but we did get a mod that allowed us to auto fish.
Good old auto fisher.
Oh my god.
Lifesaver.
Oh my god. Why is fishing mechanics so hard to get right, guys? I'm just gonna say this. Why?
They're different in every single game, and they're each terrible. Just if you press the bloody button on a pond, just give me the damn fish.
Exactly.
Just give me it.
Exactly.
None of this trying to balance a fucking thing or press things in the right. Just give me the fucking thing. Just give me the fish.
Even if it was as simple as like just doing, you have to do an arrows of like with Helldivers, when you go to activate something, you like have to do like arrows of up, down, left, right. That'd be fine. I can do that and pull out a fish. But this whole having to get this perfect balance between where the fish is, and the fish is constantly moving, and it's not always reacting to as quick as you want, or like the slight press of a button sends it to the other end of the... No, why is fishing such a hard mechanic for people to get right?
Auto fisher. Bang.
It's literally, it would be the one thing that I'd say about this is if we get a mod for auto fisher, like my gosh, it's the one thing I think that like save the grace, but it covers everyone so beautifully.
And there's really good mod support in the game as well,
yeah.
like that make really good quality of life changes, like that auto fisher.
Yeah.
There's other ones as well that I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are good ones. Auto doors. Yes, walking in.
You have to open and close the door by hand.
Yeah, and the fact that it does that, opens and closes it behind you, that's brilliant as well.
It just saves you time. But I'd highly recommend this game. This is my #1 game, and it's so satisfying. Like, of it is, would I ever play with 8 people? I don't know 8 people to play this with, but I would definitely, like, I love seeing other people's, like, on the forums, like how they've built their town and everything. So it's absolutely amazing. We definitely, like, will be continuing with this game, I think, into 2025 to just continue building, because like there's still loads of updates and bosses and everything being rolled out into it that we haven't even come across yet.
Well, that's a good thing you say, because they have just announced a new game, Kiora, which is basically this, but the side scroller, like 2D, but it kind of looks like Terraria, but with like this kind of formula.
I would actually say it's Core Keeper meets Splunky.
Yeah.
Because it's the Splunky 2 face on.
Yeah, 2D.
Yeah, 2D, but you're building down like your Core Keeper. So you build your base, you build your like camping and all that sort of thing.
That's what Terraria is.
I haven't played that, so I can't talk about it.
That's
so
a classic.
Why I'm trying to like talk about what games we have talked about.
Terraria, so if Minecraft started this whole build, craft, mining thing, then it was Terraria, took it 2D.
Yeah.
Then Stardew Valley introduced the cozy elements of that.
Yeah.
That's where they started.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a history lesson for you.
Yeah, there's a history lesson for everybody.
But excellent. But that would be my top 3 of my cozies.
Fabulous.
So yeah, I'm like real excited because we now get to go into our bonus game.
Yes, we have one bonus game which I won't spend too long on, But what I will do is just give a shout out to the other games that could have made it this year, because we've had a huge year, massive year.
Yeah.
Some of the games that didn't quite make the cut. Normally I reserve the bonus game for a different game in a different year. So a game that didn't come out this year, but I happened to play this year.
Yeah.
Now this bonus game this year just happens to be very close to 24, but it was released last year.
November to November, it's fine.
Yeah, it's perfect. But some of the other games from this year that didn't make the cut, Animal Well. Yeah, that's a magnificent game. Great solo Metroidvania style exploration. Really good game. Deserves a lot more shout out than it did. Maybe a little too short. But still magnificent. Excellent atmosphere.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, the different movement and pixels, again like Balatro, like little flourishes just help bring it alive. It's a lovely game. There's no combat whatsoever. It's all exploration and puzzle solving. That deserves a shout out. Another game, Songs of Conquest, which very nearly made it into number 3. Very nearly. The only thing that held that game back was there's just a few AI issues. The AIs would kind of act a bit weird, and then it would like soft lock between goes if you're against the AI.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have it in a great spot. You could make custom maps, and the AI would soft lock on it, and then you'd have to just, after 4 hours, you'd have to just stop because the AI broke itself and you'd have to just stop, which is disappointing. But it basically plays like a Heroes of Might and Magic from the 90s, except it's like a spiritual successor to that. Really, really good. Probably could do with more factions. I think they released a new faction this week, but Songs of Conquest, it's kind of a nice kind of like you're building up your camp, getting some money, upgrading your units, and then sending your units out to battle against others, and then take control of their towns, look for resources, capture objectives.
Yeah.
Brilliant game. That was that close.
So close.
That close to making it to number 3. It was just the AI locking and glitching and bugs that just kept it out.
Yeah.
There's no bugs that I've ever found in Against the Storm, and that's why it's innovation and something that's so fresh and an original idea made into number 3 compared to like Songs of Conquest.
I think
But
that's fair.
huge love for that. Love that game.
Yeah.
And then another game, which was my Future Frother from last year, if people can remember that, was Helldivers. Again, a game that kept itself off because it just so many own goals, kept on scoring against itself. It can't have a run of amazing things without having a run of terrible things. It's one to the other. Ultimate high, ultimate low. Kept going. You'd bring in a brilliant update that fixed itself. Then you'd need required login from PSN. Then it would bring in vehicles and all this thing. Then it would do a partnership with Killzone, and the skins were like 20 quid each.
So bad.
It's like, no, stop scoring own goals. They bring out an amazing update with new content, but the content's bugged and broken, and the servers are busted, and you can't play on it. It can't go on a run. It just can't.
Helldivers is a great game, and we still play it because they've just
Super
gotten
game.
a new
I'm still
update.
playing it.
But
We're still playing it now.
There's always something. Like it's like handing like a piece of cake to you and then smacking it out of your hand, because you'd be like, oh my god, like they do, like as you said, they do an update, but it would bug something else. So it's just like that ridiculous stuff. It was like, well, it's like this is just unplayable, like in a sense, because it's just like, what's the point if it's just going to be like too difficult? And then like I think like with the recent update, like they did do very well with the new update, because they like even had patch notes like within 48 hours of it. Like we noticed within like the 24 hours, I think actually we played it, that there were differences. But then of course they ruined the joy of that with the whole Killzone like skins, where it's like instead of doing just here's like a special like war bond where you like work your way through like earning points into each, they were like, no, you gotta pay 20 quid for one skin of just like an outfit. And I'm like, why? Like, why would you do this? This is stupid.
And even before that, there was times it released in February, and I think they had like summer updates that completely broke it. And they had other things, like they would do a massive, they would release a war bond, which is kind of like a paid kind of patch or paid kind of content update, which would release different types of weapons, but they're all themed off something. But what they would do is they would release a fire war bond, and you'd buy your fire war bond and be very excited about using a fire, and then they'd nerf the fire the day after,
which was stupid.
It's like they can't. That's literally the day
extremes.
after. They cannot go on a run. It's one good thing followed by one bad thing, and there's a huge uproar, and then there's an outcry about it. Which, well, that's a different story. But sometimes, and I feel like Arrowhead, the studio, I feel like none of this is their fault. I actually think like it's a lot of, like everything in life, a lot of corporate overreach. I think a lot of it is Sony's direction. They're getting that in their ear. You have to do this. Has to be a certain price. Has to be out now. Regardless, everything's rushed.
It does feel that way.
Because I feel like if Arrowhead, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If Arrowhead were left to their own devices, and if they were a true indie studio, we wouldn't be getting as much content as quick as it is. But we'd be getting top quality, polished content, probably a quarter realistically, because they don't have Sony money. But it's that trade-off. Do you want well polished content maybe once every 6 months, or do you want half-hearted losses, half wins,
content for the sake of
every
content
once a month,
rather than quality content that the gamers want?
Mwah. If you can't hear the kissing sounds, she summarized it perfectly. And that's why I love Helldivers, but it's because I couldn't, it's just not, it's not original enough either. It's just a third-person shooter, and it's terrible to play alone. It's solely a multiplayer game, and you have to play with your friends. Otherwise, there's no crack. The best crack is when you're role-playing in there, and you go in, and you're taking the piss, and you're messing. Load of messing. That's when the game is at its best. Not when you're fighting by yourself on level 10 million, and I'm a big fucking man. Who cares about that? When you're playing with your friends at level buddy 2, and you're role-playing in there, and you're like giving squad call-outs and trying to play a role almost, that and taking the piss, that is when the game is at its best.
500 kg bomb on you and you die, and you're like,
you drop the 500 kgs on your friends. Amazing. Amazing game. 10 out of 10. But 6 out of 10.
It's worth an honorable mention, but not a top 3, unfortunately, because of just the little things going on.
Yeah, if it can go on a run and get a load of things right, which it has done at the time of recording this, they've just released the Illuminate, they just released their first vehicle, which is so exciting, which is what we were calling out for months, and we stopped playing it for about 2 or 3 months.
To give it a break.
Just give it a break, and now it feels like it's back. And when they brought it back, then they also had this the day after, a controversy about skin prices and racing prices.
That was an external factor versus they didn't bug the game, thankfully, like their last one.
That's true.
But,
that's true.
You know, we get there.
It's worth a shout out. But we are still playing it, and it is an excellent game, and I do recommend it if you have friends to play with.
Is that your last honourable mention?
That's the last honourable mention. So we got Animal Well, then we had the Songs of Conquest, and we have Helldivers.
My honourable mention was Fabled, and I mentioned it previously, like during one of your examples of like from your top 3, and it was so lovely to the point that like it gave me such settler vibes, but like more cozy, less combat, but a fairy tales, got a beanstalk, got a giant, you know, let's see where we go with it. Like, I absolutely love it. It's such a cozy game for like anyone who just wants a city builder.
Love it.
It's such a satisfying city builder. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's my honorable mentions just straight out. But it brings us into our
bonus game, and I won't spend too long on this because it's already been said many times before, but it's deserving.
It is. Our bonus game is
Baldur's Gate 3. Just superb.
Oh my
Superlative.
God.
Wonderful. Magnificent. All the adjectives.
Just every word under it. I think I'd probably say I played less games this year because we spent so much time playing Baldur's Gate.
Actually, yeah. I think we're playing this straight for half a year, every Wednesday night for a solid 6 months.
I think we're like 80 hours, is it?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, 90 nearly.
90, yeah.
We're just coming into the Baldur's Gate.
We're starting the third act. And we are in the third and going into it, and we are going to hopefully finish it over Christmas into, hopefully not into January, but maybe this side of Christmas, like this side of the new year, we'll finish it.
We should try and finish it.
But I love this as our like GOTY Wednesday couples game.
Incredible game. I mean, how do you perfect perfection? It's just so. To give a brief overview, if you've never heard of this bloody game, somehow it's probably the best game ever made. Just hands down. It's incredible. So for me though, it's special because it so accurately replicates like a tabletop role-playing experience like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
But it does it so well in like video game format. It's just tremendous. It is Dungeons and Dragons, the video game. Really, in all but name. It's made by Larian and Wizards of the Coast, who obviously own Dungeons and Dragons. But the two standout features of the game that make it for me are, well, outside of the exploration and story, which is tremendous, but the combat is so satisfying. The tactical play, the spells, the everything, just everything about the combat is so tactile. And the feedback is wonderful. Just like the screen shakes and shatters when you're doing like spells and when you're like making sword hits and hammer blows and all this. Like here, falling off the roof, like little screen shakes and sound effects. Just the presentation of the combat and the sound effects, like it sounds so visceral, like blades slashing, and everything is just so thick and crunchy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
When I say that, it's hard to explain, but the combat is so beefy.
Audio is so important in this game, and it deserved winning like the awards for it as it did, not just for the voice acting but also for the audio that happens in it and everything. I'm generally looking at this clip going like, where the hell was I during this fight? Probably one of those times where I was off to the side going like, do I need to step into this fight or are we good? Like, do I need to enter combat or do you want me to stay outside of it? But like, we've spent so many hours playing this game from a story point of view that when we do get into combat, like it makes like it's so interesting to get in there and see, because like depending on how you interact with characters also depends on how you do the combat. I
mean the story is as interesting a story as it was for me back in one of my other favorite games, Disco Elysium, which the story in that was incredible. Maybe because the voice acting and the general acting, or if they do mocap or whatever it is just so detailed, so finely acted. It just helps sell the whole idea. And that's actually where I was going to come from. I can see you laughing over here about someone falling in the grease.
In the grease. I was like, oh my god.
There goes me.
But this it's just sorry on a side point of like all those different sound effects is like putting in this like mechanic where it does impact you of what you've done is like, it's I think is the biggest thing, because normally like when you play a roll top game like in D&D, if you're playing it like in person, like you can just, you know, you don't necessarily take into account everything that happens, but I think this is also a great way of not just with the story but also learning how to do like a D&D, like how to actually play a D&D game. Like if you don't know certain mechanics and how they normally affect people, like slipping in grease, like how fall damage works, like those sort of things, it actually is so well companion that it does give you that opportunity to like learn all these little bits. And I also think I just realized where I was during all this. I was fighting on this side in a different battle, killing them off, and you're like, what's happening here? And I'm like, what are you happening? You're in a fight, I'm in a fight, we're all in a fight, what's happening?
We were in two different fights, I think, at the same time. But that's an excellent point that you said there, and I had that before when I played Divinity Original Sin 2, which is the precursor to this game. It almost kind of helps you understand or visualize how a role-playing game or like tabletop game like Dungeons & Dragons can work. It helps teach you about fall damage and like jump distances and conditions and concentration spells, which I didn't even know how that really worked in the tabletop in Dungeons & Dragons. But this game kind of helps teach you, and it gives you a good focal point to sort of see how the rules around those games play, and that you can adapt those in. It's like, oh, I didn't realize how this worked. That's how it should work in our tabletop
Honestly,
game.
yeah. It also, like, obviously with the voice acting and all that, also showing how your interactions with people affect things, because like very much when when we started D&D, it was very much a combat focus, but we've developed on from just singularly combat into being story prompting, more communication, more use of our skills and everything, rather than just going in and like stabbing someone or like blasting someone with a spell. Like, we're giving ourselves that opportunity to go ahead and do our little bits here.
Absolutely. And like how immersive Baldur's Gate is, that's what we've kind of adapted into our own personal D&D sessions with our friends, because we kind of understand that just all fighting all the time isn't really that fun. It's the messing you have outside of that, and the rolling for the different types of conversations you can have, and the messing you can have. And that really is like encapsulates how fun D&D is when you're role playing, like conversations, not just fighting all the time. I don't understand some people like conversations, but or combat, I mean, but other people like conversations and like the role playing aspect to it, and trying to like talk to somebody and rolling dice to try and beat that. And
the story.
To kind of formulate a story as well as the combat. So it comes in kind of twofold, you know, and we've embraced that really well, and Baldur's Gate does that excellently as well.
It is very much, especially when, like, as a little loop goblin myself, I love that I can do that in Baldur's Gate. I have so many things to the point that sometimes you like you're like, where did you get this? And I'm like, I actually can't remember. It's somewhere in some chest in some thing that I found it like 2 arcs ago. I don't know.
You are a little loop goblin.
I'm a loop goblin, because you never know when it's going to come into handy. And actually, in fairness, a lot of the things we found have come in handy, which I think is a great story prompt of how diverse this game is, because we played once with a friend and they hadn't even seen half the things that we were seeing, because I love looking into every nook and cranny of a game to find what have you built in this world, because it is very much open world sandbox style. Like, you're able to find and play the way that you want, and that would be my most positive thing, like, that I love about this game, is you can go ahead and do so many different things and play in so many different ways. And I think it's so important, like, of like how much diversity is in this game, and you can play it as narrow as you want or as broad as you want. And as a loot goblin, I absolutely love it. But I guess, like, it's a great question for you then, is what did you love about this game, like your number one feature for it?
Well, outside of what I was talking about, the combat, I'd say my number one feature for this game, which is strange because I really like the sort of tactics and combat in most games I play, but for me this was the cast, the main cast, your main ensemble that travels with you. They're just incredible. Like, it's just wonderfully acted, wonderfully voiced. The main cohort, Asterion, Karlach, Shadowheart, Lizelle, all the gang, they're just amazing. Like, it's just, they're so personable. Their personalities have been so well written and so well developed. It just feels like actual people are traveling along with you, not just ones and zeros. They react to different things you do. They say things that against like decisions you've made, and they challenge you, and things happen, like encounters can happen out of the blue, and they'll give you their opinion on it, or they'll approve or disapprove, and there'll be cutscenes with them, and they're just so personable that you feel like they're like your friends, or like they're like a traveling kind of party with you, and they make or break the game for me. Well, outside of everything else, the game is just magnificently made. It's just superb, just magnificently made game. A triumph of video games, but the main cast, they do it for me. They're just amazing to travel with. So well written, so expressive, really diverse set of characters, and they're not afraid to. The writing in it isn't afraid to talk about difficult topics. There's kind of race wars. They talk about different hatreds between races, and there's just loads of different kind of political talking points that they talk about that are normally difficult. Like, I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but I remember at the time when we were playing it, there were so many different difficult talking points.
It is though. It
points.
Is very much depending on obviously like how you build your characters and how you build your people, because like everyone's at a bit of a controversy at the start of it because of how the game opens, and you're all kind of interacting, and depending on how you go on the path and what options you choose in your dialogues depends on how you play the game. And I think that's where like the diverseness and the detail they've put into the voice acting really shows true with like how you're interacting, because like how you interact with Lizelle is different to how you're gonna interact with Shadowheart, and how Shadowheart like interacts versus Karlach is all different. Like Asterion and like Hansen, like they're all different characters like that you can interact with and build a relationship with or ruin a relationship with, because they have their own autonomy where they might also leave if they don't like you and they're not in your party anymore, or like you might gather more party. Like it is so important, that voice acting, and I think like it really is so important when it comes to the points of like story prompts, where it comes from, that because it does cover very difficult conversations. It does cover religion, it does cover race, it does cover minorities. Like it does cover a lot of those things that you wouldn't think gets covered in a like an RPG, like a game, but it does actually cover those things off, and not in an in-your-face way of like here's like our stance on things. It gives you the freedom of how do you want to explore those things, and versus like how would you interact. Like, are you going to side with like how one person says something, or are you going to go and side with like how someone else says something? Like it gives you that freedom to choose where you stand. It doesn't snowball you into a specific peg.
Yeah, and it doesn't shoehorn in those topics as well just for the sake of having them in. They're done really subtly but very well, and I think that's why the characters are so interesting, just because they have like they have their own little quirks. Like you said, you can like kind of make them mad and they leave, and they have like their own kind of like humor. Even the sense of humor in the game is like so funny because there's so many different ways to interact with different characters, and they each have different ways they like to be talked to or spoken to, and they have their own like motivations and their reasons for being and their own goals, and it's just amazing how vividly they're brought to life. I don't know, it's just
so much dimension. It's not just like you interact one or two lines and leave. Like you know where they stand on their beliefs, you know what they'd be happy and sad with. Like you get to know what their favorite things are versus their dislikes. There's so much dimension to each character. It's not just a one line and go. Even the side characters, you get to learn so much about them, and then you're just like, oh my god, like I did not expect this much depth. Like they could easily have skimped and done shallow work on a lot of it, but they made sure to do the depth of character building that you would want in a game this enjoyable.
Absolutely, and it's for that reason it's so incredibly immersive. It's impossible not to get attached to the characters you're traveling with and your side characters in your camp, because they're so well realized, well written, and phenomenally performed by the actors. It's just, that's what really sells this game. It makes it easier. 100-hour journey with the characters is so much easier digestible because these characters are so interesting. They're so lifelike. And outside of that, there's like a fully realized story with like in a beautiful fantasy setting with tons of armor, spells, weapons, swords, quests, side quests, monsters, battles, everything. It has everything. It's like a full fantasy opera. Beautiful. It's beautiful. But not only that, is that it's a wonder to play in multiplayer. It's a brilliant co-op experience. It's seamless. It's so easy, and the character creator is amazing. I think you spend like 2 hours in the character creator. We
definitely spend 2 hours like creating our characters.
It's brilliant.
Every time we level up, we're like there debating of like, well, how are we going to play our character? Like, does this make sense to get a character? Certainly for me, I do. I like genuinely do, and that's, I think the great thing is that you can put in as much effort or as little effort as you want, but still have a very immersive story. And I think like that's where like it becomes like a recommendation for like a lot of people. But even with all those positives, I wonder like, is there any feedback we would give?
So it's just a real shame. There's a lot of feedback actually. With a typical Larian game, there's a lot of feedback just because it's a Larian Studios game. It's so big. It's going to have minor issues. A lot of minor issues, but like it's going to have a couple of big issues. So this isn't part of my negative points, but one of the qualms I have about it is that your main character, your custom character who you play as, is not voiced at all. And I understand the decision if they wanted to go with this is you putting yourself into this world. Yeah. This is how you would react, but it would be cool if they voiced that. I would like, even if there was a switch to switch on, to be like, I want to hear what my character says when I click. No, you can't do that. I want to hear that as a voice. That helps me be more immersed. But I understand the silent protagonist. If they want to do that, I get that too. But for me, I would like if you could hear your character voice when you click on whatever action it is. That would be cool. A couple of other things. There's just so much jank with games like this. It's the same as Divinity. The same as Divinity 1. Or Divinity 2 and Divinity 1, I mean. It's just there's so much like kind of janky bugs and glitches.
You click something that you did not mean to click, and yet you're kind of like, how did that manage to happen?
Yeah, just like bugs and glitches. They don't break the experience, but they just kind of like irk a little bit. Like things like when you get into a forbidden area and you pass a 22 check, and then even though you're not supposed to be there, but you somehow passed it, and then for some reason that has bugged or glitched, and then the person asks you the same question again, and then you fail it, and then you're locked out of that area, and it jeopardizes an entire area, like mission critical area, and you can't go there again, or it turns all the guards against you, and you have to reload it back. Like, that's kind of crap. Like, why does that happen? I passed it the first time. Why are you asking me like straight away again? There's a couple others as well. Mainly, I don't think the names of the characters and the lore and the story characters that they're talking about have been well defined enough, because there's so many, especially with the Gith, like with Lae'zel, there's so many of those obtuse, randomly named, jargon, shite names that I can't understand who you're talking about from one interaction reference. Yeah,
trying to remember who they are talking about, and you're like, was that the one that we met here, annoying. Or was that the one that we met there?
Yeah, like with the Kethik, Vlathik, Voss, fucking piss off. Like, I don't understand. Shouldn't have to read a wiki before we're playing the game to remember who we're talking about. Like, they just sound so similar, and when you meet them, they look the same as each other. And it's like, what part of the story is this guy? Is this the king of the thing that you've been talking about, or were you talking about this little lowly farm peasant here? Like who are you talking about?
I think that was like definitely like for that whole Lae'zel like kind of arc, that was extremely difficult to track.
They're just junk names like Vlad, blah,
they were too generic.
I don't know who that is.
They were too generic to like kind of differentiate them out in order to actually go in and be like, okay, to remember who's this, who's that, because it is actually a bit like, that is important. Like, it is important to remember who are we looking for and who we're trying to reference.
Yeah, you need audibly distinct names, and you need visually distinct characters, and the game didn't have either of those for, well, they did obviously because they're different races, but the Gith, that race, it's so hard to differentiate between the names and the characters because they dressed them all the same, and they kind of didn't look visually distinctive as characters, and I didn't like that because they had all these made up jargon names, and I couldn't remember what part of the story, who was like the main villain and who was like the side villain and who was like the helper and who was like the savior, and it's like,
who are good, who are bad, because it is like it is very important, because depending on how you do that interaction depends then how do you actually do like your follow through, if you will, on that storyline, because that is like a detailed storyline, but it starts before you even get to that entry point, and then when you leave it there's still references to them, and I'm sitting here going like, who are you?
Well, that's probably why I'm so mad, because the stories are so good in the game that you want to know what's going on. You're not just breezing through it to get to the next combat because combat is fun and crunchy and satisfying. You actually want to know what's going on in the world because you're so invested in the characters. And when you can't differentiate one character reference to the next when they're talking about certain characters, it means nothing.
That happened in Deathly 2, and I would agree with you. This is like a big thing, is like having that character differentiation, but also because it's like that's 80 hours ago that I would have had this reference. Like I can't remember.
Exactly.
I need some sort of like a rememoral. But like it happened in Shadow Heart's Arc. You ended up having like a bunch of just names said at you, and you're like, I actually don't remember who this is. Now we end up obviously relearning it, but like at first I had to be like, is this character? And you're like, no, that's that character. We ended up running back into, as I said, like you do the Githyanki, like you come across them 3 times, and the third time we were kind of sitting here going like, who are all you guys? Oh, this is that stupid one who had this like stupid thing happen to us, and we had to like fight our way through it. Like we had to try and recall in order to know, are they a fight worth having, or are they just someone we need to like actually make friends with again, kind of thing.
Yeah, and outside of those, I don't know, like those little kind of irks, like the bugs and glitches, you can kind of live with because they can get over that. And then the story, the random names, that's the only real kind of bad parts. There's another kind of things, like the game being like 150 gig. I understand because there's a lot of like beautiful. The game is as big because it's beautiful. And it's beautiful because it's big. So it's one of those catch-22s. You can't have a small game, but you can get over something like that. But 150 gig, we gotta start. I don't know what's going on here, but we gotta start getting them down.
It is a big boy, but I would say like definitely it's
worth it for the best game probably ever made.
I would say it's worth it. Like definitely when we finish off the third arc, it will probably get removed from my computer to free up space for other things. But I would say like for me the positive is the story, like development in it, but the feedback for me is the story element gets a little fuzzy, because definitely when you end up, I think that mid-second arc, some things were being said and I'm just sitting there going like, I actually have no idea who any of you people are or what the purpose, but they're big characters for the third arc, and I'm sitting there going like, this has not been mentioned before. Where are you? Where did you come from? And maybe it did get mentioned. I can't remember.
That's exactly it. So in the second arc, they're trying to set up for the finale in the third arc, but they're referencing these nonsense names that you can't remember because they're not visually or audio.
Or maybe we didn't come across those like story like prompt for 2 of those characters. At least like Shadowheart was the third character that like her story brought us to that like arc point. But those other 2 characters that pop up there, we never got any voice clips that talked about them, and if they did, went straight over my head as to what they were referencing,
which is a shame because the game is so good and the stories are really, it's just, there's a cutscene for everything, and that helps it feel more immersive. But when the characters are made up jargon names that you can't differentiate between one guy and the other, even if they're in the same cutscene.
After 80 hours, like you're not gonna remember like every detail. Like we're not playing this back to back, we're playing this like once a week.
That's what disappoints me about it. Like, I can't tell you who the main big bad's name compared to some guy in the Gith or the king of the Gith.
They're all the same, like to me.
That's the same.
I will say, I do know what they look like, but I can't remember what their names are.
I can tell you what they look like.
Remember the purpose of them because they just got introduced. I think that's like, I think like that's the one thing. It's beautifully big, but it's also to its slight detriment too big. So I was like, oh, okay, who are you again?
Do you think the game is too long? Is that what you mean?
No, I think like there's so much detail that sometimes it's too hard to remember all the detail.
If they released a DLC next year, which they said they're not.
Oh,
There's no DLC for the game.
I hope not.
That's interesting, because if they release DLC for it, I probably wouldn't buy it.
No, it's too big.
Buy it.
It's too big as it is, and that's where like it's beautiful of a story arc, but it's also just that little bit too big of a story arc.
I think like the package is perfect the way it is, to be honest. It's just as in the package, as in how it's presented, and like the size of it, not the names of the people, which we've been over for the last 10 minutes.
I was gonna say we were only gonna give this like 5 minutes, and I'm pretty sure it's more than 5 minutes.
I mean, Baldur's Gate is worth it.
It's a lot of hours.
They are updating it next year to bring in new sub races or subclasses, sorry. And that's interesting, because I mean, I'd play the game again.
But that's the thing. We'd play the game again, but I think I'd only play it as a speed run. So I'd use the new classes as an explorative to learn as soon, but I'd speed run it.
Yeah.
I think I'd speed run it. I wouldn't do as like the first run through this is where I'm loot gobbling my heart out. I'm finding all the like nooks and crannies, looking for everything I can do. But if they bring out new classes and I was tempted to do it, I'd definitely do it as a speed run to try and see how quick I can go through with the new classes.
Yeah. I mean, I started it again with Adam last week, and I did really enjoy it. But I'm not really into DLC anyway, because I feel like it kind of dilutes most games. It doesn't really add much. Like anything interesting. Anything interesting. It adds more content, but not really meaningful most of the time. So that's why it would have to be something meaningful. They said that they're never going to add DLC to it anyway, which is fine.
It's too big to also bring in a DLC.
But what if they brought it in DLC, which brought you to like, it's like 30 hours, and it brought you to like a new island with its own story, its own characters and stuff. But you could bring in your own character and like your own thing, and it had some recurring. You could bring Karlach, Lae'zel, like that's interesting. It depends on the premise of it, but yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, because this is like probably the best game ever made.
Absolutely love this game.
I'm not clamoring for more, because I feel like it's almost like the perfect package outside of the silly names. But it's like a ministry of silly names.
But like I think that's the thing, is I think it's perfectly fine as it is. I don't see the need or the want for a DLC. I don't really mind like some upgrades of new like little things or anything, but like a new location as part of the story to me doesn't make sense, because frankly, once we get to the end of this third arc, that's it. That's the game done.
Yeah.
Like, I'd go back and have a mess with someone who for the first time was playing it. I'd play it through with them, and I'd play a different type of character, and I'd have like good crack on it. But that I'm not going back for myself to play it again. I'm going back to play it with someone else who's playing it for the first time. And I'm like, how do you want a character to play this? Let's go. Woo.
I would be like that, and that's how I started with Adam last time, because I've seen it. I know what the story is. Although I don't like remember certain character arcs. In fairness, though, the second playthrough is helping me remember for where we are right at the end
so you
of
remember
Baldur's
all those
Gate.
ridiculous names?
No, I don't.
Not yet, anyway.
But it's helping.
Yeah. But I think, regardless, though, for me, I'd highly recommend this game for anyone. Regardless of any opinions I have, I would still recommend this game.
This is a must-buy. This was phenomenal. Like, it's a must-buy for any fan of video games, for tabletop games, for role-playing games. It's one of the best games. It's probably the best game ever made. Class. Absolutely brilliant. The only people who wouldn't be into it are people who don't like maybe turn-based combat or games that are too long. But if you are an avid, like a enthusiast video game hobbyist, you gotta
play this game at least.
You have to. This is one of those games where you have to play at least once in your life. Phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Just hands down, incredible.
Oh, are they your final words?
Final words. I've written a summary in the blog. I've written, it's, Okay, the definitive video game experience and the closest we've ever come to replicating tabletop role-playing games as a video game. Absolutely exceptional. Thank you to everybody involved in making this game. A sheer triumph of art and technology. Mwah.
Deserve the
Chef's
awards
kiss.
that I got. Which, that's obviously our bonus game. We now get to bring us into our Future Frothers.
This is actually one of my favorite segments. There's so many games coming out next year that to choose one, there's so many games that are currently in early access that I'm looking at that really want for next year. It's just exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just great.
It is, though. I think that's the thing. Like, there's always going to be so many games, and like we are in a very peak, like, constant era, and it's not just like big names. It's the indies are really coming into play. But there's so many different ones, and like I love when they do the game shows and they show us what's upcoming. For me personally, I forget what it was like. Future Frothers, I do forget them because like they're in the distance, they're not released yet, they're somewhere on a wish list. So that's why I love doing this, definitely, because last year's Future Frother, I had Coral Island down, a cozy game. I did not get to play it yet because I was hoping it would come out on Switch, but with the Steam sale, I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and buy it on my computer, because based off of other cozy games I've played, it's definitely a cozy value game that I think actually suits the PC more, just because of the art style, the mechanics. They've had a DLC come out that puts you like in underwater mechanics like a mermaid, so I'm gonna go ahead and play that this year, and actually buy it as my Christmas game, so that way I can play it. And obviously I have loads of like games in there which will be on my top 3 for next year. It'll probably be in there depending on what I game. But I have picked a different Future Frother, which has not come out yet, which it will be a Switch game for me, without a doubt, and it's only coming out on Steam first in 2025, and of course it's a Cozy Valley game. It has to be. It is Wish Upon a Llama. This was announced at the Wholesome Direct Christmas, like winter update and everything. This Cozy Valley game focuses more on the ranching end of things. So you're focusing on how to raise the animals, breeding the animals, feeding the animals, like creating like out into the wild these animals. Like, it is still gives you your classics of like, you know, interactions with the romancing, the finding a marriage partner within town, doing the gardening and everything. It's a pixelated game, and it's beautiful artwork. It's a real pastel style of like element, but one of my favorite things outside the gardening in Stardew Valley is the animals in Stardew Valley. I love them so much, having the chickens, the rabbits, the like ducks, the horses, the cows, the sheep. I love them so much in Stardew Valley. I think their mechanics are always so interesting, and that's why like as soon as I seen this into Wholesome Direct, I was like, I'm done. This is my frother. I cannot wait. It's down for 2025. I genuinely think I would wait. I would just get this on Steam when it comes out, but as soon as it comes out on Switch, I will buy it again, because it's just one of those games I think I will keep it into like my rotation of things, because it's just so wholesome.
Yeah.
It's so wholesome.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks like, and it's funny, I see a capybara on the
It was a year of
trailer.
capybaras.
It was, and I feel like I have like a funny, it's like a bingo kind of drinking game. It's like for every capybara you see in a cozy game, take a shot.
2023 was the year of the frog games. I don't know why, but in 2023, every fifth game released in the wholesome like category was something to do with frogs. And I don't know what it was. I was like, why is everyone obsessed with frogs? I get it, some of them are super cute, but also, what's with the frogs? This year, in 2024, I will say there were a lot of capybaras popping up in like artwork. I've seen them like in the Vampire Survivor style games. There's a capybara version of that. In this game, there are capybaras. In Fae Farms, there's capybaras. In Luma Island that released. I'm pretty sure there's a capybara in it. Like, it literally was like a bingo card of what animal is going to be this year's feature. I would definitely say it was capybaras. That's why it's so funny that you see it in here. But there are like different things like unicorns and horses and all those sort of other like characters in it. So
Yeah, it feels like it was capybara was like the breakout sort of animal for this year, and I wonder what next year's animal they'll latch onto. But yeah, that it looks like a typical cozy game that you'd enjoy.
yeah, it's a typical Cozy Valley. The focus is on the ranching side of things, which I'm excited for because I don't really feel like I have a Cozy Valley game that is ranch specific. Obviously I have like Sim Ranch Life or something like that, and I have Sims like Cottage Core, and now there's also a horse version of it, so like expansion. So like I have versions of some sort of animal raising game, but as a Cozy Valley specific, finally I have a ranch style game, and that's why it's going to be in there. So it's 2025, no specifics at the moment further than that, but it is my Future Frother, and I think my Future Frother will always be changing, mostly because the ultimate Lord and Almighty, one day I will get this, is Haunted Chocolatier. But that's my Haunted Chocolatier is your Silk Song. Who knows when it's going to release? It's just in the winds. It's there as a name. It'll happen when it happens.
I'm convinced now that Silk Song actually doesn't exist. The studio flooded and they lost all the copies of Silk Song, and it's gone, flown away down the river.
Down the wind. But that's like, that would be your Future Frother, but it's not, because it's just in the wind and it'll happen when it happens, like my Haunted Chocolatier. But you do have a Future Frother that is coming out.
I do. So Future Frother last year was in fact a Helldivers too. And that game was bloody great. It's like the main multiplayer game we're playing all year. Just a few missteps. Well, with every good step, like they would have a misstep, as we just said. But that's not to detract how fun it is to play. But next year there's a load of games, and honestly, I could have put any number of these games. There's Slay the Spire 2, Hades 2. See, these games are in early access and have already launched, so we're kind of just waiting. And actually, I only realized that this game isn't launching next year, it's coming into early access. But look, irregardless of it, I'm still really excited about it. There's Witchfire, there's Quasimorph, shout out to Quasimorph. Yeah, really looking forward to a few of those games. Silk Song doesn't exist. Even Rotwood. Like there's a load of games coming out, but this game in particular I'm really excited for, and it is Menace. So Menace plays kind of like a XCOM. It's like that kind of turn-based tactics, military sort of same, but it kind of has this it sounds interesting in a way that we don't really know that much about it, but you have to take on different challenges and different maps and tasks and stuff like that. I suppose the usual XCOM spiel, but we haven't seen XCOM. I don't know when XCOM 2 came out, probably 2014, 15, 16. But either way, Menace I'm really interested in because it's from the same developer as Battle Brothers, and Battle Brothers was crazy difficult. Now I've recently read that this isn't going to be as hard or as unaccessible as Battle Brothers.
They always say that.
But they do say that. But I am interested in this because I don't know. What I've read on the Steam description and some of the Discord explanation and announcement kind of posts kind of makes it seem like it's more of a squad-based shooter, turn-based, and you have to you go on a run. I think it's more like roguelite, where you kind of like you have to find armor and different kind of, you can upgrade your units and get different like call-ins, like air support and all this, and you have to find weapons, and you can choose like different loadouts, and you can bring like robots, and you can salvage like weapons and like vehicles from the maps, and like you have like interpersonal relationships with like factions in different planets, and you fly from different planets to help like different kind of different factions. Yep.
Looks very interesting. I'm just like based off the like seeing, because I haven't seen this, like, so I didn't even know until like now what your Future Frother was. It's very interesting because it first comes to mind Helldivers 1
Actually,
kind of
yeah.
style.
Yeah.
But it's like Helldivers 1 met Undaunted, the board game.
Oh, yeah.
Just like looking at how like some people like go in and it looks like you have to try and get around, destroy certain
Flanking.
bases, flanking, that sort of movement style. It just made me think of, oh, this is like Undaunted.
Yeah.
For some reason, it made me think of that.
Well, the game was supposed to release at the end of this year, so it's supposed to already be out. One of the interesting things was the announcement trailer kind of showed off sort of monsters. So there's monsters in the game as well, and I think that might be the menace. But I thought it was just going to be like a military shooter, but the fact that there's sort of like a monster, sort of zombie sort of element to it as well. And I kind of like that it's like a run-based kind of roguelite structure, as well as being kind of like squad-based tactics, and you have to scrounge and scavenge for weapons, and it's like last-ditch attempts to like overwhelm, or you are being overwhelmed most of the time, they said in a blog post, so it'll be like very difficult, and I imagine it will be difficult like Battle Brothers.
Yeah, it looks really interesting though.
Yeah, it looks really cool, and even the monsters you see in the trailer there are kind of like weird tech, sort of like zombie, like bio sort of monsters. Yeah, mixed with like tech.
Alien.
It does look cool, and I like the kind of I don't know how you say, like the turn-based sort of mechanics to it, and it's real like militaristic. I'd be interested to see what the outside of that is. What is the hub world? How do you get missions? How do you get rewarded? Things like that. But from what I've seen, and the fact that it's from Battle Brothers as well, Ironhide Studios, I think it is. But it's being published by Hooded Horse, who have had a crazy year publishing strategy games. They're behind like the biggest strategy games you've probably seen all year. Overhype. Sorry, not Ironhide. Thinking of a different studio. Overhype, and yeah, published by Hooded Horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait for this game.
It looks really good. I'll be excited to see like if you end up getting it by end of 2025 in the end.
To tell you the truth, probably not, because the game's coming into early access, and I have a thing against buying early access games.
That's fair. I think we've only ever done one early access game, and that was Core Keeper.
True, actually. Now, in fairness, when we got Core Keeper, it was very, very, very close to the launch release.
Yeah.
General release. So
we still put a lot of hours in there before they actually released it.
Actually, we probably have more hours in the early access version than we do in the release version, I would say. But at the same time, like, early access is not the complete package for me, and I don't want to get involved in a game that's not a complete package, because the time to get reinvested in a game and be re-excited about mechanics that you've already seen and already have played with, even if they weren't fully built, it takes the sting off the excitement.
Yeah, I get that. No, I do get that, because that's like even why like Hades 2 is still just as a future for you. It's not a game, because it's still like early access.
That's my favorite game of all time, and I'm refused to touch it until it's like the final complete package. I'd rather pay double from what it's worth now for the full release, just because I know that game's going to be crazy, and I'm not going to play some half-hearted, half-finished game where they haven't even got the story finished. Like, I want, or any of the content, the gods. I want the full package.
I feel like it's like a new way of getting beta testers is by doing early access.
Well, it is actually.
It is.
No, you're dead right. That's exactly what it is.
That's the thing. Like, they're getting all that free like content back.
You're paying to help them develop the game, which is fine, because if you want to be involved, you can pay your way in, and you will have a say in how to better the game, and then ultimately you can have the game that you've helped shaped and that fans of the genre or that game really want. But for me, like, I don't have a fervent love for any one studio or any one game that I want to pay in to kind of like blunt the edge of that sort of like that initial excitement and attraction to a game, when you know the honeymoon period in the game when you first get it, and it's so much fun and it's so new, and you're still exploring it, and you're finding out the upgrades, and you're finding out how the game plays, and you're trying to like digest how to play the game the best way. And that is gone when you first play early access games, because you're playing a half-hearted way, so it blunts the rest of the game. It's not as sharp because you already know what to expect at the full release.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't want to touch
I think
early
the
access.
only benefit of an early access game is if you're getting it at a cheaper price and just leave it, don't play it.
Well, that's actually how I got Songs of Conquest. I was following Songs of Conquest for like the last 2 years, and it was just releasing. It was a month out, and I bought it. I got it for £7. I think it's like 33 or 34 euro. Yeah, they had a steep sale when early access, and with only a month to go.
Yeah.
And I got it for £7 on GOG.
See, I think that's where the early accesses come in handy. It's like getting a board game off of Kickstarter rather than in the shop. You're getting the special edition things rather than the actual stop.
That's true. But for me, I think not early access, but early adopters in anything, in tech, in video games, they always get the blunt edge of things. They always get the short end of the stick.
Whereas we always say wait like 6 months after release to play it, because all the updates would have come in, and I think the greatest example of that will always be Cyberpunk, of how that game launched and how that many updates that went through. But
True.
It does take, I think, 6 months for a game to truly settle into its bones, to make sure everything's out and everyone's gotten to points and new people can come in for it. So yeah,
And like bugs can be ironed out. They can start getting an idea on what kind of content people want, what people are bouncing off, what they like or don't like, and they can help smooth those things. That's why a year after, it's already been tested by the general public, and it's already been it'll already be on sale by so much more.
So it's kind of a watch the space in 2026, maybe more so.
Pretty much. So I probably won't be buying Menace, but it is one of the most exciting games that's not like a mainstream game that's coming out next year. Slay the Spire, Hades 2. Another game that I would recommend is, if it was on a Future Frother, is probably Witchfire.
Yeah.
That probably will be releasing into full release next year. I've been following that for the last couple of years. It looks amazing as well. It's kind of like a extraction shooter, single player, like first person shooter. It's very interesting looking, but that'll probably release.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see. Like, this is why, like, I made sure to check what my Future Frother was after. Like, where actually did I go with this? And why didn't I go with it? But I think the only thing that will put me off on my Future Frother is if I really do end up deciding waiting till it comes to Switch. But as I said with Coral Island for 2023 Future Frother, I ended up waiting because I was like, oh, I think like it will be a better Switch game. But I've also changed that opinion now of like what I think is better as a Switch game, like a console game versus a PC game. So that's why I'm going to buy Coral Island.
Absolutely.
Versus I think I might just bite the bullet because for my Future Frother and just get it on Steam when it comes out, because I think like it takes 6 months to a year. But in fairness, Coral Island is still not on Switch as far as I know. I checked it before, like at the start of this month when I was double checking things, but I don't think it's come out on Switch yet. So that's like a year that I could have been playing this game, and I haven't. So now I'm like, okay, well, it's on the sale. I'll just get it on the sale now and just play it.
You know what?
It has expansions.
You'd be better off getting a Steam Deck, actually.
Honestly, yeah. I'll just borrow yours.
Yeah. I think they're on the Christmas sale right now.
Yeah, the thing is though with the Steam Deck is not everything Steam Deck supported yet. Why you could probably get away with playing it, but unless it's marked as Steam Deck supported, it does take away on that like enjoyability of the game if it's not supported. Yeah,
I understand that.
So,
well, it's funny, we could talk about Future Frothers until the cows come home, but before we finish, there's one more game that we will be playing next year that could have made it onto this, but I have already prepared the footage and knew I was going to put Menace
before the release,
Well, Split Fiction.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
This is a Future Frother for ourselves because we played as our couple Future Frother. It will be. We already designed this whole thing, so we couldn't put it in after that was announced and everything. It was just gonna we already had it planned. But it is definitely one that I can't wait for. It's from the makers of It Takes Two. We loved that game, and I cannot wait for Split Fiction.
Yeah, I'll be excited for Split Fiction. Obviously, Haze Light with It Takes Two and the follow-on to that game. But it'll definitely be on our Best Bits stream compilation next year. There'll be so much messing.
It's released in March, right before our birthday, so it's our birthday game for us.
How perfect is that?
And I'm so excited because it is, instead of being from It Takes Two, for anyone who hasn't seen what Split Fiction is about, it is two female novelists are going in to try and get their novels published, and they're using this new tech in order to try and make stories come alive, and they end up in the same universe, but they're actually crossing between one novel, which is a fantasy kind of D&D style medieval fantasy story, and the other novel they get pulled into like as a different chapter, which is a futuristic cyberpunk style of novel. So you're going through their novels, bouncing between the two as like different chapters unfold to try and get out of their novels. So I cannot wait. Some of the gameplay that we've already seen are really, I think, shows the difference from It Take Two, that it's not the same, just going to be the same game, same mechanics. There are a lot of new mechanics in this, so I can't wait to see how they like develop it out.
But for me, It Takes Two like revolutionized the couch co-op split screen adventure game. It's just everything. Every new scene was a new sort of scenario or puzzle to solve, or a new mechanic.
New mechanic is the best way to describe it.
It was just a blockbuster, like action-packed, so much fun. And I know that because Hazelight are behind it, and your man Joseph Fares, he's hilarious anyway.
Right.
So
we still talk about It Takes Two. I still cry about that elephant. Whoever has played it, they know what I mean. I still cry over that. But it was just such an ingenious style, and I think that really started us in our couch co-ops, finding games that we could play together rather than just sitting next to each other and watching the other person play a game, because that's how we first started playing games, was you watching me playing Uncharted 4 in your house, and then anytime combat came up I just handed it over. And that's how we started our like dual playing.
Yeah, that's true.
The controller.
Yeah, that is a good point. It all started with Uncharted 4.
Yeah, and now look at us now, talking about
Split
games.
Fiction.
Woo!
Brilliant.
I think that summarizes in all of our games, all of our Future Frothers.
Yeah, I think so. And with that, we had an action-packed 24 with loads and loads of games released. We had some great party games. We had some great co-op games, great stream games. The best of the year stream is up right now. There's 3 videos.
Best bits.
Yeah, the best bits. So part 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, they're up now. So if you want to see those, they're here on the YouTube as well. But it was a great 2024, and I don't have anything to cheers you.
We just have our little glasses.
I still have a little bit. You don't have any.
I don't have any. Don't look at it. It's fine. But cheers to us for our next year.
Cheers to 25.
We're just gonna have a good day.
You can't drink anything.
I'm just drinking as well. I drank my drink versus he not.
And goodbye to 24 with a kiss the glass. I did it again.
Not even anything in it. He still chokes on it. Oh, bollocks. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you again for next year's games of the 2025.
Goodbye.
Bye.